When we think of what makes a game scary, it usually boils down to three aspects: environment, where it's in a claustrophobic space and your movements are limited to just those spaces and nowhere else; sound design, being always against you, giving you the feeling that you're either being followed or paranoid; and lastly, to finish it all off, perfectly timed jump scare.
These are the fundamentals of what makes a game scary, but very few times some games go against them yet remain scary, and Penumbra is one of them. For those who don't know about Penumbra, it used to be a huge name back during the early days of YouTube. Several YouTubers like PewDiePie,
I didn't know it was your girlfriend!
Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, and many more have played this game, and many can say that these games were the ones that gave them the initial fame they deserved. Developed by Frictional Games, the same studio that's now working on the much more popular franchise Amnesia and even the most anticipated game Soma. It's one of the few studios that has created the type of games where you have to manually interact with every single prop and object, leaving you vulnerable to enemies during said time. Well, although the game itself is fun and very forgiving in its horror aspect, there's one thing that many couldn't quite understand: its story and the lore that it builds on. Which is why in this video we'll be taking a deep dive into the story of Penumbra, what happened then, what will happen now, and what might happen in the future. There's a lot to cover, from emails to notes to characters dropping some insane lore, so without wasting time, let's deep dive into the haunting world of Penumbra. When you launch the game, it gives you a series of text as someone types in real life, explaining that what he has found is beyond his belief. His father Howard has led him to this rabbit hole after deserting him at a young age, and his mother passed away of unknown reasons. Then we get to know the person's name, Philip, the main protagonist and the one whom we'll be taking control throughout the journey. And he claims that by the time we read this he is already dead, which is an odd way to start the game. It's almost like his fate has been sealed, and no matter what we do to avert it, it's of no use. It ends with the sentence that highlights in red, "It fates frown, we all perish," which is a foreshadowing of the end of Penumbra, but we aren't going to dwell too deep into that. Once you're done, you're greeted with a sobering yet mysterious home screen OST, which is an iconic one to listen to. Starting a new game allows you to choose which difficulty you'd like to play in. Unlike modern games where there are more than 3 options, here it's just exactly 3, and they're straightforward in what they claim. I played this in normal mode because there's no achievements to track here, and it helped me to keep my playthrough much easier and straightforward. After that, you are greeted with a bit of story time from Phil's background, stating in February 2000 where his mother passed away and his dad's letter showed up to him a few days later. While he has no affection or any form of sympathy for his father for leaving him that early, he still decided to read the letter, which reads his plea of forgiveness and some form of rambling on what he has found. But along with that was a set of directions that led Philip to a nearby bank in Mayfair which he has never heard of, to discover an account on his father's name and him as the executioner. To his surprise, his father was presumed dead nearly 30 years ago, which was a shock, but he didn't bother too much of it. Everything in that account, which was a collection of books, letters, and notes till now while under the law, was his all along to take. While reading the information, his father noted down on those findings. His instructions to his sons was to destroy all evidence and to make sure no one gets their hand on such mundane yet sensitive information. Most of what the notes were present in the books were indecipherable, but contained a location somewhere in uninhabited Greenland. Being a university professor representing physics, his curiosity got the best of him and he decided to make a journey to the place. It took him a year to set his mind straight to travel, leaving behind the last traces of civilization to find himself in a place with barely a few people present. Once after landing on the strip of ice a few feet wide, he hitched a ride on one of the fishermen's chartered boat and sets sail for almost 12 hours to the very place his father wanted to destroy. This is where it cuts to the present time where Phillips is getting ready to leave the boat, and this is where you take control of him. You get the hang of how the controls are in this game. In general, take any game in any genre. It simplifies it just by tapping on it and does the action. Tapping on it and it opens your inventory. Tapping on it and then it automatically places any item that you're holding on into the spot that you want to. Penumbra is different. Here almost everything has to be manually interacted. Want to check if there's something useful in that drawer? Well, hold on to the drawer and pull it manually using your mouse. Whether there's something in the chest, hold the mouse and pull it up manually to check it in. Want to get access to the locker that's locked? Well, double click to select the key on your inventory and awkwardly zigzag through the locker till it doesn't show red and click on it to unlock it. And still manually open it? Why go through all this hassle? Cause 1, it's to demonstrate the capabilities of their HPL engine, and 2, cause fuck you. It's time for you to experience true horror when you have to manually do everything. But this system is perfected in a way no one thought it would, and at first I was annoyed at this feature but slowly gained a love-hate relationship for this mechanism. Once you collected your notebook, which is where all the notes are collected, and a small journal entry is taken down will be kept. A flashlight which serves you as a source of light, which will require batteries to run. A glow stick which lights up the area around you, and my take is that the glow stick is 10 times better than the flashlight. It gives similar lighting effects but for a much wider area. It requires no batteries so you don't have to search for them. The only downside is that its reach, as the glow stick can only illuminate the area around you while the flashlight can shine a direct beam at further distance. But it is quite pointless since most of the time you will be in claustrophobic space where the glow light will shine supreme. A set of batteries for your flashlight will also be found, and optionally, opening the chest will give you access to your first letter, which is from the fisherman's wife, stating how much she misses the fisherman and while going for the weeks at sea to catch the fish and sell them. She even requests a few trout to be caught so she can prepare a special meal for him once he comes back home. And the neighbors asked if they could find any during the season, which according to me sounds hard enough as the trout only shows up during spring and fall season and barely during winter, but I think I'm reading too much into this. Once you're done packing up and setting off to Greenland, it cuts you to a paragraph from Phillips, who now realizes how devoted he has become to unearth the mysterious ramblings his father was trying to tell him. But slowly, because of the cold, hypothermia starts kicking in. You now need to find a shelter quickly. The next scene is where you're out in the middle of nowhere and chilly ice surrounds you. You have no time to spare as staying out in the cold slowly chips away your health, so you'll have to run forward to find the entrance of the bunker, which is frozen shut. So taking a nearby rock and throwing at it removes the frost and gives you access inside the bunker. Now you don't know what it is or why it is even here, you just want a shelter now and that's all that matters to you. While climbing down the stairs, you stumble and fall, which isn't really shown here cause they didn't have the budget to show the animation for it, and not to mention that back then they were a small team of not even 10 members working for them, and most of them were working remotely. But the sound says otherwise, accompanied by the following voice. After waking up from the fall, you must now find a way to go deeper in hopes of finding some resources to keep you alive and warm. Looking around, this looks like an ancient bunker used for war, with all the empty ammunition crates and old wooden shelves, and one of the boxes you'll find a flare. It acts similar to the glow stick, but you can throw this to light up the distant area without having to use your flashlight. I haven't found much use of it personally, but it's always a nice thing to collect and keep in your inventory for the worst case. You'll also find another one by moving this barrel and it'll be located right behind it. After that you'll find a room where the door is slightly opened, and just before it is a pipe that you can collect, which you should cause it'll come in handy very soon. Once you enter through the room, at the immediate left you'll find a hammer that can be used to help you get through certain obstacles and sometimes even be used to kill enemies, which I'll talk about later. In between these two shelves, you will find a small gap that you can access by moving the left shelf and striking the board using your hammer. Now the attacks are something to mention. It isn't as simple as click to hit like every other game in existence, but you'll have to swing left, right, or backwards to charge the attack, and then swing in the opposite direction using your mouse to hit the target. And good luck aligning yourself to the target, because once again, it takes a lot of time to master that aiming. Once you manage to break the board and enter, you have two paths to take, but there's nothing to worry about as both lead to the same direction, just that the left side is longer than the right side. Once you enter there, you'll find a hatch that is controlled by some form of mechanism, and going closer causes something inside to collapse. At the opposite side, just where you landed, is a lever with a missing rod. This is where you place the pipe that you collected, and moving it away from you clockwise opens the hatch. As you walk into the hatch, the screen fades to black and Philip speaks out his mind as the loading screen tells how secluded the space has become having been protected by two solid metal hatches in the middle of nowhere, which sparks curiosity, something which he never experienced since he was a child. He thinks about society as a network of safety nets where no matter what problem we have, there is always an emergency line to call for help, all designed to be a part of this delicate structure to prevent all but the most mundane of emotions. He also talks about his childhood circle consisting of older people just so he could feel protected and be of help during times when teachers, parents, or his regular friends were either of no help or weren't available. You can tell that he is speaking out of his mind because it isn't making a lot of connections to anywhere except for the first one, but he is right on the second paragraph. We do have everything for even small issues to help us out, and it shows how far we've come as a whole species, but that slowly makes us weaker to things that our ancestors used to consider as normal, or something that one can handle on their own. Before we move on, I just want to clarify that there are no chapters in this game like how I did for Mafia. I'll be referring to these sections as layers since each layer takes you deeper into the facility and contains its own set of puzzles. I feel like it'll be great to do these things structured just so we can clear up from the next section onwards. With that being said, let's move on to the first layer. After descending into the old bunker, the structure behind you collapses, which makes the previous area inaccessible. The game then teaches you of potential enemies and how to avert them. Spoiler alert, you can't kill them. Well, you technically can, but it's just not worth the effort. Instead, it encourages you to take the stealth approach, which we will get to very soon. Using the map of this layer that we have found, we can head over to the storage room where, upon entering, you will be greeted with 3 doors, of which you can only access the one on the left for now, and a lighter to one of the shelves. Just beneath are some crude drawings that shows that the lighter needs fluid with light, which currently it doesn't have, so we find a side objective to find the fluid. Once you enter the room, on the left, you're greeted with a box with 3 stones in it. You can't move the box because it's too heavy. So backtracking to the previous room just before entering, you'll find another crude drawing explaining us to remove the stones to make the box movable and to get access to the other area underneath, which will do so and gives you access to the underground caves. While crawling, you'll encounter a spider, but don't worry, it's just a subtle foreshadowing of what your enemies are going to be like. Going to the right, you'll encounter a mummified creature which has been dead a long time ago. Going further left, you'll encounter your first note and a flare. The note contains a rather inconsistent journal of a man spending his time in this place as documented as follows. On day 1, something horrible happened 6 hours before he started journaling, and he found a rather safe but abandoned place in the mines called the workstation, the same one that we just entered into, and he claims that the same reason that 30 years ago has brought them all here is the reason why they're all separated and threatened now. It's unclear what it is, but it is something to keep in mind the further we explore the hall. On day 3, he predicted that the rescue team would arrive today, but had the fear that they might not find him because of his location. He decided to venture out the next day to find them before they leave him. On day 6, he nearly got himself killed by some feral creatures that have now made the bunker their home, spraining himself whilst escaping from them, and vows not to go out into the workshop no matter what, despite him taking a keen interest in the creature itself and its existence. On day 19, he starts losing hope of any rescue team arriving. His food supply running low and the place is filled with spiders, which he hates. On day 34, the spider accidentally landed in his mouth while he was asleep, but instead of spitting it out and killing it, he swallowed it, because he had no other food options other than the creatures of Saw. While he was worried about any venom coming into effect from the spider, he decided to wait till the next day to see if any. On day 35, no signs of venom, which slightly rejoiced him as now he has one of almost inexhaustible food options to consume, and in the name of science discovered a basement which you currently are in to find more of these spiders. On day 50, he seems to have run out of spiders because of the light he was emitting from his flashlight, which, after its battery is drained, caused his discovery that spiders like to lurk in the dark. So he started camping in the dark, gathering as many spiders as possible, like a predator waiting in silence for the right moment to pounce on his prey. So far in this journal, he seems to be doing well. Not as great as how he started, but he's able to sustain himself. This also shows how slowly you start losing your self-worth just to meet your daily needs. And this journal is no different. After passing through some of the steam pipes and taking a left, we find another note, which is a continuation of the journal from before. It goes as follows. On day 71, he discovered small traces of natural chemicals in the spider's stomach, which consumed on a regular basis will result in consequences, sometimes lethal. So his next option is to barge out and gather as many resources as possible, but his reasons to not go out is strong, for which he has no source of light, vowed not to go out till safe, and the spiders are tasty. On day 100, he celebrates himself for surviving that long, while also slowly going insane, referring to the spiders as his friends. Now we evolved to be more aggressive and massive in size, mostly because of the evolution over time, but based on what is purely one's guess. He considers his journeyings and ramblings as scientific findings to whoever who stumbles upon it, so they could put great use to it and find the information reliable for future studies. And he ends the notes by saying all great discoveries tend to consume their inventors. This last sentence is very true for many, and I mean many, scientists out there. Oppenheimer discovered the atomic bomb and after being consumed by its devastating effects, started protesting its use in any situation. Marie Curie, who coined the term radioactivity, passed away due to the same. Alexander Bogdanov, who discovered blood transfusion, passed away because of acute hemolytic transfusion reaction. And this is also a subtle foreshadowing of what's to come for him. Once after passing through all the steam pipes, you encounter a room which has been locked, but luckily the lock is rusted, so it's easy to break using your hammer. Going in, you'll find batteries on the chest and a fluid on one of the shelves, which you can combine in your inventory with the lighter to give a working one. Luckily, the crafting mechanism is very easy to master, but you'll need to know what you can and can't craft to make the most of it. Once you do, you now return back to the room, but you hear this. It's unclear what it is, but someone was in that room all along. And something much more powerful also lived in the very same room. You then decide to climb up, but you need a ladder for it, so you re-enter the cave, and at the immediate left you'll find a ladder that you can place to climb on. Once you do leave the room and enter the room on the left, you'll find some batteries, painkillers, which will be a main source of healing apart from self-recovery, and a strange object. You don't know what it is, but interacting with it gives this. A strange vision that you aren't sure what it is, but technically saves your game. It's unclear what it's called in this game, but let's just call it save point for now. Going out of the room, you now see two inaccessible rooms now accessible with a lot of blood trail from one room to another. Going into the room where the trail begins, you are greeted with a desk and a toppled over chair. And on the desk is one more letter and a key, and the letter is third and final journal of the person, as it reads as follows. Day 200, he acknowledges the delay in making his entry as during his time of hunting and eating, the spiders have become too aggressive for him to catch, so he barricaded himself in one of the only rooms with a functional lock. He also performed a minor surgery on himself to tend his wounds on a non-vital organ, only to discover himself foaming from the mouth because of all the toxin he has been ingesting. thus presuming that he is infected. Day 300 acknowledges that another century has passed and his mate attempts to escape from where he came, but it is blocked. So he resides in this very room till fate does part, and also comments on how the spiders are still after him to this day. Till now, he was in this room, and all that dragging and fussing we heard from before resurfacing, well, that was just one of the largest spider species that finally was able to break into his room and drag him away. Truly killed by his own discovery, as he stated in his journal entry. This guy, whom we never met nor ever knew his name, has somehow made much better character development than any modern game I have played in the last few years. In the other room, there is a hole that isn't large enough for a person to go through, but enough for a strong creature to. On the left drawer, you will get access to some beef jerky which you can't use to heal yourself, but you can use it as bait for the enemies. Once you're done, you can leave the workshop and... This is your first enemy in the game, a mutilated wolf. Your best bet is to hide and stay still as possible, which activates your eye's natural night vision mode and the wolf won't be able to see you. Or you can stand on the box and not worry about it, as the wolf technically reach you at that height. But if you stare at the wolf for too long from your hiding position, Phil will start having anxiety and will jump from his hiding spot, which will reveal his position to the wolf and ensue a chase. So you only have to rely on audio cues while hiding to be safe. Judging by the model, you can tell that it has a rough transformation and scratches and exposed flesh all over the body. It's easy to spot because of its glowing eyes, but if it starts chasing you, you cannot outrun it. You can technically kill it, but it takes more than 4 to 5 swings on your hammer, and they tend to attack at a much faster pace than you do, which makes it pointless to go head to head against them. Luckily, as soon as they spot you, they take a few seconds to charge before running at you, so you do get a small window to escape and onto the next room, which is the office. Unlike the workshop, this one is more in order and less cluttered, but it is filled with all forms of books and informations, which is pointless to fill up. On the desk, you'll find a bottle of Paxton, a note which dates back all the way to 15th August 1945, where Chief NCO M. Major was performing a general routine checkup on the bunker, deeming that the checkup was unremarkable because of the results. They also discovered a few people who developed a bomb in the workshop big enough to blow a few fingers apart, and being a responsible person, took accountability and punished those who created it. They were able to create it in the first place because of an instruction manual on how to create different types of bombs, which is now sealed in the chief's chest. He also placed some orders for the mines, including a pair of reading glasses for himself, as his wasn't in a good condition, and talks about how looking into the artifact that was recently discovered by the scientist, which according to him seems to have worked in different parts of the parts and emit light in certain areas. And coincidentally, we see that very object which we termed save point earlier. Interacting it gives the following dialogue. It's like him seeing his father being so distant yet so close at the same time. The person whom he has no sympathy for because of abandonment, now he searches with eagerness and worry of what has become of his father. In the drawer of that desk, you'll find a small key and another note, which is a letter sent to Copenhagen Post on Monday, August 17th, 1930, which talks about a university doing research on the various mines in Greenland, and found this mine, the one that you're in, to be more interesting due to its high suicide rates and the country's average since last year. When digging deeper and diagnosing workers' behavior, they found that all seem to have similar symptoms in common. Paranoid schizophrenia, which used to be a term until 2013 till they just termed it as schizophrenia. It causes hallucination and delusions, to name a few, and it being a very common with the workers in the area have all the bit more suspicious. They suspect a particular natural acid called lysogenic to be the cause of this hallucination due to its appearance in rocks. They also interviewed the locals, but those who agreed gave their own accounts, the most common being the Inuit spirits known as Turngates live in the mountain. Now, Turngate in real life is a spirit that has never been connected to a physical body at all, and are often considered as shaman's helper. But not all turn guides are good, as there are evil turn guides that torment and possess human beings. While they can be exercised, they can also be used to one's advantage, provided they can take control of it. But the term has been simplified to just demons when the Inuit have converted themselves to Christianity. Do remember these sentences as they will be crucial throughout the timeline. Exploring a bit more and you'll find more supplies and a chest which the chief said to have locked in his letter. Using a small key we collected earlier unlocks a chest, and inside we get the same explosive book which he said to have sealed because of the recklessness of the people who took him. I won't go too deep into this, but you'll have to remember all of the compositions as you will be using them in some parts of the game. Now leaving the office and going to this location which seems to have an opening according to the map, but in actuality is blocked by the locked door. Remember the key that you collected in the workshop earlier? You can now use that here and get access to the second half of the map, but you now have to block the door to make sure that the wolf doesn't get to you. But trust me when I say this, there is no way for you to actually block the door, as no matter what you try to do, the wolf will somehow find a way through. But luckily, it only patrols this area, so there's nothing to fear. Going through the northern area, you'll find a blocked off wall which Philip comments on it, how it can be broken through and with a huge explosive. And a note nearby which talks about how a random person loves his workshop so much and rambles about it. Now in order to blow up the access through this, you'll need a huge explosive and a fuse. The explosive is located over this section of the map where you'll have to carry this keg labeled TNT and place it on the hole, and a fuse to set the detonator, which can be found by going to the actual workshop, but you realize that it's password locked. Now, how do you access this? Do you remember that note that you just collected? While reading through it again, you'll notice that there are certain characters written in all caps, the numbers 2148, and surprisingly even the word backwards. When you put the code 2148, it doesn't access the workshop, and that's because the word backwards is also highlighted, which means that the code must be put in the backwards order, which unlocks the shop. Once in, on the left you'll find that the box has a string in it, and on the right shelf is another save point. Going into the front room, which is filled with all machineries, and a rubble of stones with the rays of sunshine at the top, showing that you're still at surface level and you have a chance of escaping should you ever need to. Moving over the rubble, you get access to the pickaxe, which is a slightly stronger version of the hammer. For striking objects, it takes a swing or two less than the hammer, and it should be your choice while encountering things that needs to be broken. Going back and taking the left side of the room and navigating through, you'll find one of the rooms that has been barricaded by a poorly made yet efficient electrical fence, which you can jump through by stacking two boxes like this and jumping over them. On the other side, you'll find a battery that's powering it all, and disconnecting it disables the fence. On the opposite side is an explosive room, which you can access by breaking the door with your pickaxe. Inside, you'll find a painkiller, dynamite, and a keg filled with gunpowder. Breaking it gives you access to dry gunpowder. Now remember the explosive book you just collected? That comes in handy now, because in chapter 1.3 it talks about how to make a fuse, which involves soaking the cotton string in backstone and covering it with gunpowder. A simple yet effective fuse. Once done, you can then leave towards the TNT and place the fuse. Set it off with your lighter, which gives you a nice 2000s like explosives in a video game. You can then leave this place, and it cuts to another excerpt of Philip explaining that he would rather starve to death or be mauled to death rather than start a chain of events. Still, as he is too deep into this hole, he can't really find a way out. He is only addressing this to someone else whom we aren't aware of, so we can assume that there is someone whom Philip knows personally. This section is vastly different from the previous ones, with architectures more advanced than the previous one. You start over here, and going over here you will find a generator that seems to be in a functional state, but trying to run it shows no power. On the shelf near the entrance you will find a save point, 2 pairs of battery, and a generator guide on how to use it, like the explosives in the explosive document. It's best to keep this in handy as it will come to play very soon. In order to start the generator, which is big enough to power the whole mine but nothing compared to 2000 standard, You will first need to get a battery, which is located in this box, which you can't break using your hammer or pickaxe. Instead, what you'll have to do is break one of the barricades of this hole and throw it over there to break it. I'm surprised the battery didn't break along with it, but this is game logic, so I can't question that. After collecting and inserting the battery, you try to rerun it. Still, something else happens. One of the fuses breaks, so you'll have to find a new one, which is located over this room, where you'll also have to find a few supplies and an emergency procedure manual that contains instructions on how to access situations during the time of emergencies, and the last page contains certain Morse code which will come in handy in due time. You realize that the fuse box is empty and the only remaining fuse is at the top of the shelf, which you can access by placing a few blocks and jumping over them to grab it. Once done, you will get to replace the broken fuse with the new one, and running the generator again doesn't give you the results. And that's because of these walls. They need to be activated in a specific order to make it work. Using the generator manual on the next page, you'll find a few steps to follow. Step 1 is to activate the secondary flow, which is the wall with the barely readable icon. Next is the cooling unit, which is these horizontal waves. Release steam is the vertical ones. Grease flow is the one with the black drop. And primary flow, which is the very first valve with the Roman numerical 1. After that, you're finally able to turn on the generator, which gives light throughout the mines, and navigating through, you see a gate that is passive protected. To know the code, you'll have to head over to this room, pick up the walkie-talkie, to which you'll soon hear this. Of sort. And using the emergency procedure book you picked earlier, you can find the code to be But before you enter the code, you hear this over the comms.
Good day, can you hear me? Well, I hope that your ears are working better than your tongue, so that you might use them to listen to my words. You have turned on the light at the end, beginning and middle of the tunnel, but some things remain shrouded in darkness. A Morrissey message I hope has helped, but what you need now is the wall hole to the right of the fence. Oh, go now, there is no time to explain. Well, in fact, time is one of the few things we have in abundance down here. What surprises I've spoiled by such catty curiosity.
Finally, someone who is alive and knows of our coming. We don't know if he's leading us to our demise or if he's trying to help us, but for now, he's giving us directions, and we can only assume that he knows the place better than us. So we have no other choice but to go with it. Entering the same code unlocks the gate, which takes you to the second part of the mine. I took the left direction just to avoid the wolves eating me up alive, after which we'll hear the same voice again. This time it talks about how we can get to him and what to watch out for, and he gives his name, Red, which isn't his actual name, but he prefers people to call him that. After which we make our way to the tool shed and we find some supplies, a saw and a note, which talks about an artifact called 66B being a strange manufactured device that almost looks alien-like, emitting a continuous low light, and people who often interact with it start going delusional and go missing on random occasions, only to pop back from an unknown place. This artifact sounds similar to the save points that we're interacting. As we touch it, we get delusional with random memories, and when we die, the artifact seems to revive us near it or in the last place we got saved at. And its discovery, being near to Substance 63, makes it all the more mysterious than ever. But let's keep these facts in mind and move on. Going to the storage room, we see that it's locked, and Red comments about it, saying that there's an alternate area that we can use to get access to it, and that place is the excavation room. Although because of being isolated for so long, he has become quite short-tempered, as if he yells at Phillips and apologizes later, to which he shows he doesn't mean what he has to do. Once you're in, Philip redirects his gaze at an opening which could be the way into the storage room, so you'll need to find a way to reach there. Below is a broken ladder, and using either one of the halves you can place it at the top, and using some boxes we can make a jump straight onto the opening.
But before that, on the nearby desk, we can get access to a note which talks about different tests performed to see what Substance 63 truly was, and what they have discovered. Almost all the tests have been resulted in no reaction except for 106, which caused side effects for test subjects, so it had to be aborted, followed by 107 and 108 not being carried out. The fog of the substance gave more positive results, which resulted in the succession of the tests 159, 161 and 301, confirming for sulfur, chlorine and ammonic acid. It ends trying to fix the issue for transporting said substance, as 3 workers had an unfortunate fate with them, and one of them couldn't work because of it, and how reactive the metal is to a point where even a slight disturbance will make it unreactive to any of the tests. So this is a challenge going on, and they are working on it. And the save point, which after interacting gives a look into someone who is still clutching on to something unknown, with mysteries around him, and an entrance of sort. The man can be Howard himself, as in the previous interaction. Philip recognizes the man in the vision as his father, and the mystery surrounding him is all the information that he has found, which are still indecipherable for Philip himself. And the entrance is him making the decision to take up the role as someone who worked in this bunker. So slowly, as you interact with the artifact, you get to see the small stories of Howard before his disappearance. Climbing into the tomb and walking a bit forward, you find that it's infested with a bunch of spider eggs, which is your next enemy. They are small, fast, and their attacks are annoying, but don't deal much damage. But they deal at a fast pace, and if there are more than one, then your death is inevitable. You can kill them easily, unlike the wolves, only taking 2 hits with a pickaxe, which usually means they're worth it, but trying to aim at them is another concern because of how bad aiming can get and how tiny they are. So you'll have to time it perfectly to not only damage them, but to avoid getting a hit on yourself. Your best bet is again to avoid them, but in the worst case scenario, you'll have to kill them to make things easier. After running through the cave and experiencing a near-death one, you land at a storage room which seems to have been barricaded from the inside not too long ago, judging by how fresh the plank looked. Red hops on the radio.
There should be some insect repellent in that red and white cross box in that room, just in case those spiders found your flesh delicious. How does my brain flesh know your fluids are leaking? Because the red tricked you! The spidery tunnel was far from a necessary evil. More so, it served as a well-deserved punishment. You thought my mind had been lost to the ravages of time, but poetic justice was struck with a sonnet and an 8-legged baptism of fire. With justice now served cold, I hope that we can be good friends, and now reclaim the key and go choose, and find a way to the mining monster.
For what sort of punishment? Even I'm not sure, because this guy speaks literally in riddles. But anyways, our next objective is to collect fuel and the key to power on whatever he wants us to. The key can be located in this room behind the green box, where if you tilt slightly and look at it at the right angle, you'll be able to find it. Along with that, behind the shelf, you'll be able to find some supplies. From the place where you landed, if you head over to the flickering light area and look down, you'll notice that there's a vent. Breaking through can give you access to the venting system, where if you go a little further and break the other vent, you'll get access to the other room with a handful of boxes and a machine that controls one of those boxes. Going straight and taking a left, you'll see that that's where the fuel is located, but it's behind a broken steel wall which will instantly kill you if you touch it. So you'll have to find another way to go through. If you head back into the room and look at the top right corner, you'll find a room that is controlled by the machine that's holding one of the boxes, and looking around at the left top, you'll find a vent that you can access. So gathering 2 boxes and keeping them together, head inside and take control of the machine to place the box on top, so you'll be able to access the vent. But before that, if you open these lockers, one of them will have a book which will give you access to the Inuit mythology, and this deserves its own section to talk about. Inuits are a small group of people that live in the cold regions of Alaska, Canada, and Greenland. These people are often found like Eskimos, completely covered with thick coats of animal fur or a long woolen jacket of sort. This is to keep them warm during the cold winter seasons. Now, although we can say that all Inuits are Eskimos, we can't say the same for Eskimos being Inuits, because in certain parts of Russia, they're still referred to as Eskimos. They used to have their own religion and belief system, until the 1903, where the multiple Danish missionaries came and changed their beliefs to Christianity, thus having to reform their culture and spiritual beliefs. The second page talks about Iron Night, or souls in English. Basically, the Inuit used to believe that every single living being on this planet had a soul, being an animal, a human, or an aquatic creature. Anything that lives has a soul of its own. But the Christianity belief changed it to making them believe that it's only humans that possess the soul and animals do not. This tarnished the respect for animals and in the Inuit culture, because many Inuits believe that if you disrespect the Arninite, which is the soul, it is considered to be disrespectful and can bring misfortune or sickness, even angering the deities that they used to believe, like Sedna the sea goddess and Nanook the polar bear spirit. The third page talks about the most important concept of Penumbra itself, and in the Inuit culture, Turngate or Turngak for singular, which means evil spirits. Turngate were disembodied spirits that were caused by misfortune or illness upon the ones whom they were possessed. They were also feared but understood as part of the spiritual balance. Just like the yin and yang, for every good there's a bit of evil, and for every evil there's a bit of good. Whoever gets possessed by the Turngak ends up being physically or mentally disoriented and are sometimes casted out from the community itself, making them socially isolated from society. Now, if someone is affected by Turngak, then what is the cure for it? That's where comes to page 4, which talks about Angakoit, or shamans in English. These people are like spiritual leaders, healers, or even meditators. They are highly respected in the Inuit community, and they are often the ones who could cast out Turngak from a person. Much like a priest in the Christian belief can help you absolve your sins or give you a path to resolution. But however, not all Angakoits are highly respected, as some of them can use the Turngak to their own advantage, making use of them as some form of threat to other people in case they don't fulfill their needs. This, however, all changed when the Christianization of the Inuit culture, where Christians just termed Turngates as demons that needs to be exorcised, and the Angakoit itself was considered inferior compared to a Christian priest who was much more capable according to the Christian culture. This removed the complete culture of Angakoit as a whole, but yet there are still few Inuit communities that have them. The last page talks about God himself. In the Inuit culture, there is no one specific deity that they have to worship. Instead, they are interconnected spirits like Sedna the sea goddess, Nanook the polar bear spirit, which are an important deity in the Inuit mythology. However, during Christianization, these following spirits were no longer considered and instead were replaced by God himself, as during the ministries of the Danish people, they were told that such spiritual practices were an incomplete search for Christian gods and placed Christianity as the missing piece for the Inuit community. It ends with the author himself acknowledging that there are still few people in the Inuit community who don't believe in the Christian God, and he prays for their soul, which implies that the person making this letter is a priest himself, which also makes sense as this letter was written in 1903, which was a similar time frame where Danish missionaries had a goal to Christianize the entirety of Greenland, and it was at the peak moment when this letter was written. By this letter itself, we can assume that the Penumbra itself revolves around the whole Greenland mythology, because Turngate was already mentioned once during our playthrough in one of the letters. And believe me when I say this, the more deeper we go, the more convoluted it gets, but I'll do my best to explain everything as we proceed. After aligning the boxes, climbing on it, breaking through the vent and accessing the other room, you're able to collect the fuel and you can make an exit through the same way that you came from. You can use these boxes as help, or you can place these two in such a way that you're able to climb them, then exit out of the room through the main entrance where you once removed all the planks from, if you already did using a pickaxe. Now with everything ready, you just have to make your way to the auxiliary shaft. Now if you're worried about the dog that's guarding the entrance, you don't need to, because there are two crates up here, so just climb on one of them and then try to move both the crates together at the same time, so that way you don't let the dog bite you while you're at it. Once you're near the gate, you can use the saw to break the barricade, and you can just make a straight sprint towards the room. Once you make it to the other room, make a sprint straight to the auxiliary shaft, where you'll be able to find the massive machine that is normally used to drill through large amounts of rocks, forming a nice scale-like structure for you to have access to the next layer. This machine, however, is inoperable, and that's because it doesn't have fuel, a key, and electric supply. To get the electric supply, you'll have to find the cable line over here. Just need to connect it to the generator behind and the control panel over here. After that, you need to insert the key into the panel to activate the machine. Although the machine is on, it can't run because there's no fuel. You have to go to the machine and try to put it in the fuel,
only to find that the fuel cap is stuck in place. So in your inventory, you'll have to use a hammer to break free the cap of the fuel and put it in the machine. Now you can activate the machine, but before you can do anything, Red comes on the radio.
You seek to find the truth behind all this mystery and think it will set you free. But truth is relative, and relatives cannot be trusted to bring good gifts. What you seek lies in shafts beyond this collapsing of the sky, and if you look closely, so do I. A century of days has passed since I saw this area last. The diseased ones sought to kill poor Red, but I took them on a wild poultry chase. They ended dead. They came from out the big metal door, but after all my years I knew the cave's door. Hide and seek turned to seek and hide, and I buried them here beneath the solid rock sky.
It feels like he's trying to make us trust him even less, but at the same time, he's the only person alive, and he's the only one who's guiding us right now. So we have no choice but to listen to what he says. Pushing the lever forward makes the machine go and drill a big hole ahead. Now it's unclear how a machine like this, large, even exists in the first place in a perfect working condition. This shows that the facility itself has been recently abandoned, and everything is still intact with only a few minor discrepancies here and there. Once you go ahead and take a right, you'll find an entrance to the next layer. One thing I forgot to mention is on the way to the auxiliary shaft, you'll be able to find another note on the table. It details a chief attending chemist analyzing an upcoming excavation done by Excavation Team B, and this was done during the year Anno 9000, which is the fictional year and corresponds to the real life year Anno Domini 1990. This phase continues from 9000 to 9001. And was titled Phase 338 and Phase 341, which was an Unknown 9000. The substance 63, which we previously looked at, was done for multiple tests and found for certain substances that have been discovered. This marked a turning point for them and pursued them further. In 1992 or Unknown 9002 at Phase 6 Artifact 66B, which was also known as save points from our perspective that we were talking about, has been discovered near Substance 63. This also continued to boost the workers' morale and continued further, but as they did, they started hearing strange cries and chatters in the tunnels. Initially presumed that it was because of dehydration and malnourishment that caused these hallucinations, they continued further, but however, it is at this phase where Chief Zeno, the head of the excavation team, decided to explore into the tunnel and see if he could find anything. But however, from phase 18 onwards, he has not yet returned ever since then. It ends with phase 50, where because of more than one casualty and Chief Zeno still missing, they decided to close it for good and not continue further. Although the voices which earlier sounded like whispers and chatters now sound more like laughing. This itself shows the mystery and hauntings of the world that they were trying to explore, and they made the right choice to not explore further. But however, looking at these logs, it was a bit too late to make that decision. In the loading screen itself, Philip talks about how he seems to trust someone who he's never met nor has ever seen before, yet being alone in the cave has forced him to do so. He also knows that freeing Red can be one of the few ways on how he could find about his father's current state and the mystery that surrounds this place. Knowing that this is nearby, he now sets this as a primary objective to find Red and a secondary to save his dad if he is still alive. You get access to a linear straight path. No maps, no nothing. It's just one path that you'll have to follow, so you'll have to take it and head straight. You notice that the door ahead of you is blocked, so you try to interact with it. But before you can even get close to it, this is your third enemy in the game, rockworms. They are luckily scripted enemies, so you don't have to worry about them. But whenever they do show up, your only option is to run. You can't hide from them, you can't try to kill them, except for just one instance, but apart from that you can't do much. And that's what you do here. Go back all the way to the start of this session where the worm will instead crawl down and not towards you. It's unclear how they even came into existence, but their presence itself is a huge threat. Once it retreats, you then make it to the same room where the rockworm came from and you're supposed to go left, but unfortunately the door is sealed shut and there's no way of opening that door. Your only option is to take a right and go through the caves. Avoid these spiders, or at least try to during the process. Head over to this room and press the button to activate the door.
However, this door is timed, so if you don't make it on time, you'll have to go back again and press the button. So sprint back through the main door and entering it at the perfect time will give you access to the next layer. Another section, which goes same as every other section, filled with wolves, so you'll have to avoid them at all costs. Red contacts you once again.
With my remaining ear to the ground, I hear your trembling tootsies padding towards their final destination. Things come to those that wait, whether they want them or not, and soon I think your wait will be over. The great metal door in reality is calling you, just as the Reaper beckons me forward. I look forward to finally greeting you. I only hope I need not greet the Reaper man first.
So looking at the map and making our way into the tool shed in section 3, you'll notice that the door is locked and it's password protected, so you'll have to find the password for that. To your left and going into the inner rooms, you'll find access to a screwdriver and a bolt cutter, which will come in handy very soon. After that, you'll have to make your way through the shaft number 13, where going straight leads you to a dead end, whereas if you take a look right, you'll have access to the caves, which again are filled with spiders, so you'll have to go through the pain of dealing with them. This cave system is quite confusing because it took me a good 10 minutes to find the exit. I keep doing loops while exploring the space, whereas walkthrough videos somehow manage to find them within 2 minutes, so it's probably my skill issue. After finding the exit, you'll have to start searching through all the closets, and while doing that, Red contacts you again.
Unless my friends lie somewhere near you now. A friend in need is a friend indeed, but a friend that's dead is a foregone possession. May they rest in pieces, ruptured, decomposing to pieces.
You did find their last words in the form of this note on the bench, which is known as the Trap Miner's final words. Now these details are the last moments of 3 miners who are unfortunately stuck in that instance, and it also details how they even got here in the first place. Someone went rogue, took a bunch of explosives and blew up the whole place, blocking the exit and now left with only these 3 inside. He thought that the higher-ups were going crazy when they started implementing security locks and gave each miner a code to the security lock, which was a hassle, and even hinted that he kept his in his locker till now. And slowly but surely, one by one started succumbing to their death, and it was finally his turn and he was no more, truly showcasing that this is going deeper than we have ever imagined. Back in the closets, you'll find multiple supplies, all untouched by mankind. Lifting one of the miner's head gives you access to a blank note, which is what the note of the miner's final words spoke about. Do keep this in your inventory because this is going to come in handy later, after which you'll have to move through some rubbles to get access to the exit that was previously blocked. After that, you'll have to make it to the exit and head straight to the refinery. There'll be a lot of conveyor belts in this area, and taking the stairs you'll find the control pistons. Now there isn't a particular order, so I'll suggest you do some trial and error method to find out which sequence lifts all 4. After that, you'll make your way through the other section and you'll need to push the ladder somehow. Underneath the ladder is a warehouse where you can take the rocks and throw it on the conveyor belt. Along with that, you can also collect these supplies should you ever need it. By then, the ladder should have come down now thanks to the rock that you threw earlier. Before you proceed, be sure to take this generator and keep it on the other conveyor belt. I'll explain later why. Now taking another rock and climbing up the ladder, you'll find that there's a button, and pressing that opens the shutter of the other conveyor belt and the generator goes along the way. Now you'll have to make your way through there because this one is fenced, so you'll have to climb up using the rocks that you collected from the bottom. You'll have to somehow malfunction this fan so you can move through to the next section, where you will place the generator in this place, which will power the next room to give you access. Red reaches out to you again.
We are now such good and lasting friends. I have gifted you with my love. Perhaps you could gift me with something. After all, the laws of politeness would be shattered if you were to appear at my party without a gift. Poor Red is so hungry. He could eat both the horse and the young rippling stable hand. Sadly, pony flesh is so hard to come by this far. Just man meat is so bland. If your eye happens upon a scurrying rodent, would you deliver the crunchy feast by way of a final meal?
Yeah. Anyways, after that, climb onto the conveyor belt and travel straight down where you'll be met with a room full of steam trapdoors. This is the order that you'll have to go in. Once you're done, you'll find the door on the top that is locked, so you'll have to move these barrels and access the vent to go through. Once you find the exit, you'll notice that the cart is blocking the entrance to this room, so moving that will give you an easy access. But that's not what you're here for. Instead, you're gonna move over to this cart, cut the chains using the bolt cutter and push the cart forward, which will make it go into a free fall straight into this wall, breaking it, giving you access to a study room which contains multiple books of researches and sorts, and an open small rockworm that they're currently researching on. Going to the far end of the room and turning on the projector, you'll notice that they're currently researching some form of worm, or in scientific terms, annelid. Looking around, you'll find multiple documents. Most of them are news clipping. The first one you'll find is on the floor with a bunch of these papers, and it talks about the nearby mines, the troubling history of having high suicide rates, hallucinogenic rocks that causes hallucination, foreclosures, and the Inuit beliefs, as we spoke before. They believe to keep that the Turngate resides in one of these mines. An ongoing research is kept under high secrecy, so not even the Inuit people who are surrounding this area know about it. The second news clipping can be found on the board over here and talks about the sudden increase of unusual activities. Multiple ships are traveling through the sea during darkness, and the lack of registration marks makes it more difficult to inquire by the officials. The mine was quickly abandoned due to a huge explosion that killed nearly 47 workers, but none of the bodies were ever recovered, which many people speculate that it's tied to some secrecy or it's something dangerous that they don't want to disclose to avoid panic. The villagers, however, kept reporting on the noise pollution, suggesting that they were directly affected, but they were unable to act due to the bureaucracy barriers. And third news clipping can be found behind the projector over here, which talks about the collapse of a section near the northwestern mountain region, further linking to the instability of the abandoned mines. There were extremely high seismic activities which were often used to detect if there's an earthquake going on or not. And the timings are quite unusual, almost like as if this was all planned out. And given out the history of the mines, people believe that something mysterious is going on here that no one knows of. After that, going over to this table, you'll get access to the save point, where saving it gives you another vision, showing your father standing right in front of a person who is grinning from ear to ear, but he holds something that's valuable to your father. After that, opening a few drawers, you'll be able to access the newspaper, which is going to come in handy, as the door on the right is currently locked, but the key remains inside on the other side. So they have to, step 1, use the newspaper to slide it underneath the door, which luckily has enough space to do so. Step 2, use the screwdriver that you collected earlier to push the key out so it falls on the newspaper. Step 3, pull the newspaper out so you'll get the key, and step 4, unlock the door using the key. Opening it, you'll find that apparently someone has been here, and some form of a large creature, which most likely could be the rockworms discussed earlier, entered in to take him alive. Everything seems to be distributed recently as the blood still remains fresh. You'll find one more note, which is a study on these rockworms. It's a conversation between two people, a professor and someone who's unfortunately trapped in the same room as the rockworms. Let's start from the professor's perspective, who say that these huge grey rockworms are called Rhycophilia, which in real life doesn't even look anything like what they depict in this game. I'm not gonna draw any comparisons to game logic now, cause they never made sense in the first place. So anyways, he talks about how these kind of animals thrive in hostile environments. Their unique adaptability of environmental catalyst enhances their survival rate. Because they have no form of predators and prolonged exposure to unknown conditions have caused them to have an unusual growth behavior, they do possess exceptional sensory adaptation, using vibrations for navigation and making them formidable predators during the dark time. However, it's also mentioned that if these were to be released overground, their rapid growth and aggressive nature could decimate existing ecosystems and lead to a disaster. He also hypothesized that under stable conditions, they would continue to grow over a millennia. However, this evolution could accelerate if certain things could help it. Then there's a survivor specter, which is the exact opposite of what the professor has claimed. The survivor has unfortunately encountered them, and after seeing how lethal and diligent they are, they can track movements of vibration, making it nearly impossible to evade them in the mine's confined space. He also argues with the professor, saying that what is found is inaccurate because the worms can detect vibrations and they do have good knowledge of who their enemies are. Now this also shows what Oppenheimer proved in his movie: theory can only take you so far. As the survivor is currently trapped and is surrounded by the worms, he reflects on a slim chance of escape, and the psychological toll amplifies the sense of hopelessness, and he would much rather prefer to end his own life than face death by the worms. This conversation shows how the situation is going on, with the scientist being in a much safer environment and probably analyzing a completely wrong species. The survivor is on the completely opposite spectrum, trying to fight for his life, but the scientist is giving him false hope. Right next to the entrance of this room, you'll find that there's a light switch. Turning it on reveals the true intentions of this room. It's clear that a madman once resided here, and all these were his ramblings on the wall. He was going insane, and although death was something that we never wished upon him, it was probably for his best. However, there's one good thing to get from this. Remember the blank note that you collected from a few rooms back? If you use that over here, the UV light will be able to reveal what's written in the blank paper that contains the code to Section C's locked door. Red comes back again.
While you hunt for those delicate, melt-in-your-mouth mousy morsels, there are places you should not go, for fear of death. The Reaper lives here, just like you and I. And just like you and I, he must ingest the living flesh of those less fortunate than him. There is a small place that I do not want you to visit, even on your holidays, because it is dark and evil place that I've been. When the darkness has overwhelmed my small decaying mind, some bad things flowed from my mind and through my pen. The brilliant blue ink itself seemed to turn to blood into my grace. And by the way, should you turn peckish, red is at its finest sautéed with a little engine oil.
This was probably where Red was kept captive for who knows how long. After that, you'll make your way to Section C, where you can now finally use the code that you got to get access to the final layer of the game. Same as before, it's now time to put an end to this. Trying to access the incinerator doesn't allow you, as you need a tool to pry the door open. Section B is completely barricaded and you can't access it, so you'll need to access the chemical storage through the last door, as the middle one won't open for now. Inside, after walking for a few seconds, it gives you this. There isn't really much to discuss in this section. You just have to run and make sure you escape. Do close the shutters using this button so it slows them down, giving you more time to complete the obstacles like jumping over this pool of acid and breaking through fences. Making into the final room, there's a pole that can be broken, and breaking it blocks the whole entrance, preventing the large worm from entering further inside. Spin the wheel to open the door, and moving the obstacles gives the exit we need from this room. On the table, you'll find a note that lists a bunch of chemicals and a random text. This will come in handy later on. On the right side of the table, you'll find another save point, which using it gives the same sentence as the previous one for some reason. It's like now we're soft locked into finding that one save point that could do some more load dumping. Looking around, you'll find a bunch of chemicals and supplies. These chemicals are labeled from A to F, which again will be used at the end of this game. Towards the exit, we move on to Lake Utah, which is Greenlandic for ice that lasts year after year. Just before entering the lake, there's a dead explorer and his backpack. You can ransack his backpack to get some supplies. Next to him is his note, his last will, where we'll get to know his name as Joe Freeman. This letter is recent, being written in the year 2000, just a year before Philip set foot on this bunker. And it talks about Joe leaving his belongings to his sister Mary, who can easily segregate his things for better use. He also talks about how he ended up in this situation where him and his friend John went trekking, but suddenly when John went to fetch some stuff, he came back more happier than ever. At first he thought he was just excited, but soon after the cracks started to show, with John pouncing on Joe and pushing his face into the snow. Luckily for Joe, the snow gave way into the lake, and both are now trapped on the opposite ends of the lake, both soaking wet and freezing. He says it's better to die young and knowing that you pushed yourself to your limits than to not live at all. And to see his friends on the other hand making desperate attempts to reach out to Joe. John also has his crowbar, which he is trying to make the most use of it, but all attempts fail because looking at the body, it seems like he's passed away from the cold and not from any physical harm. Now knowing that his friend is at the other end having a crowbar, your next task is to take that so you can open the incinerator door. To get access to that, you'll have to pass through the lake. Luckily, these planks serves as places that you can walk on, as walking on any other place is going to break the ice, causing you to sink underneath and die instantly. So you'll have to carefully navigate your way through the ice and head over to the last place where you'll find this hand sticking out with the crowbar attached to it. You can't directly pull it out because it's hot stuck, so you'll need to use the saw that you collected earlier to cut his arm and take the crowbar. Interestingly, looking at the description of the crowbar, it reads the word Freeman, which is a reference to Half-Life's Gordon Freeman, who uses the crowbar for most of his playthrough. Here's a small tip I would like to give you in case you do get trapped in the ice. Just make sure to start bunny hopping. That way the ice doesn't sink you and you're able to make it to the other side before it pulls you in. After that, navigate your way back and looking towards the right, you'll find another save point. Interacting with it gives this. It now seems that he is not the only one who's trying to interact with it. Multiple people are staying here. It's just like he's one of the visitors in that place. After all this, you now have everything you need to move to the next room, which is the incinerator. Red contacts you one last time.
Where are you, my shiny knight? Have you really made it this far? I wait, and yet the pot never boils. I remain trapped in my den of iniquity. Perhaps the gods have toyed with me once more. Sentence me to yet more years in this place of eternal nightlight. But now, maybe my ill advice has ended you. Have you rung death's doorbell? Please don't leave poor Ren all alone once more, like all the others.
Going straight, you'll find the blocked path, and the only way through it is by exploding. Taking a left and navigating through these paths, which seems to have been made by someone who knew that people would try to venture here in hopes of something. Going through this bridge gives you access to a mini laboratory where you will have to make a bomb. Remember, at the very start of the game you collected the manual for bombs, and that's gonna help you here, cause you'll have to make the bomb called Armstrong's Mixture, which in chapter 2.6 is a combination of red phosphorus and barium, or chemical D and F respectively. How do I know that? Well, taking a look at the note you found earlier and going to page 2, you'll notice that all the first letters of each word are in capital, ranging from A to F. The same chemicals are labeled similarly. So the third word on this bunch of words is dopamine, with D capital, so D is barium. Similarly, phosphorus is 5, and the fifth word is frequently, so F is phosphorus. To do the mixing process, you'll have to take the beaker which is next to the save point and place it on the burner. Opening the drawer gives you a fuse to use for the bomb, and interacting with the canister will ignite the gas, to which using the lighter will cause the burner to activate. Now adding in D and F chemicals gives you the bomb, and after carefully navigating back to the closed off entrance, placing it there along with the fuse and detonate it. This explosion will result in an opening that you can access, and ahead of you looks like an exit to the outer world. It gives you some form of relief that you're finally at the end of it all. You can only access the right area where you will encounter Red himself. It's inside the incinerator.
Good evening. You actually came. There is much that should leave my throat box now, but words elude me. You came, you are so pretty, but I have been bad. The underworld already beckons me, so I suppose one further misdemeanor will change little. It is false pretension, and not guiding light with which I have led you here. I cannot give you the answers you want. You may wish to find what it is you seek, but that is a fiction. You cannot know what it is you sought through the vast leaden doorway, or else you would seek anything else in the world. No, the key stays with me, in here, so the life that has led me, horrible as it may be, is better still than the life that waits for you, hungry behind those doors. As replacements go, you shall be admirably abnormal. But you must wonder why this metal burning chamber is talking to you in a voice you knew only as red. For it is I, your companion, residing within. You see, I have waited for this day so many years. They won't let me die. They parts of my head are not my own, and I cannot take my life. It is against the rules. Please, the pain has gone on for so long. All I wanted was a friend, but now the time for chit-chats and marshmallows by the fire is ended, and I hope that soon so shall my life. I have knocked on the death's door for so long. Please, let him invite me in for tea.
There's a lot to talk about in this one paragraph. Red is pleased that he has finally seen someone who has made it this far, which shows that not many have ever made it up to here. He warns us of the potential dangers should Phyllis proceed, but at the same time, he wants his life to end at an instant.
He cannot himself, for, according to him,
See, I have waited for this day so many years. They won't let me die. The parts of my head are not my own, and I cannot take my life. It is against the rules.
which means that he is controlled by someone whom we do not know yet, and Red wants to protect us. But he knows as soon as you help him kill himself, you will proceed down anyways, for you have much bigger tasks to take care of, finding your father. You're left with no other choice. You can leave him there, but that hinders your progress and makes it harder for him, as you are indirectly contributing to his suffering. So despite the option not being the best one, it's still better to give him the rest he deserves. All that's left of his remembrance are those ashes and a key that gives you access to his room on the left, where you can see all the ramblings on the wall and a communication set which shows he was here all along. And when he knew you were close, he set himself up in the incinerator so he could be free from his misery. In the drawer, there is a note that directly addresses to us, or whoever is the one to read it. He talks about how he even got here in the first place, being in an off-limits area and got trapped because of an explosion. Since then he was cut from society and treated intruding creatures as his friends, but soon after his hunger overtook him to consume them. He started working here to provide for his family, despite not liking the job as a whole. Luckily, he had books that he took from his parents' place to keep him occupied, which could explain why he spoke in rhymes and riddles, being isolated from society and only reading books that made him to think that this is how people converse as time progresses. It ends with him signing off as Tom Redwood, his actual name, labeling himself as a proper worker in December 1970, age 14. From a very young age, forced to work to feed his family, and has gone through all this for nearly 30 years before it all came to an end just now. It makes us feel saddened that his family will never know the fate of their son, yet it brings us slight happiness that his sufferings have now come to an end, and he can rest easy. Looking around his room, you can find all sorts of things like a carcass, showing how desperate he was for some form of food, the stench on the bed, his toilet, and even his final meal, showing how horrible it must have been for him to survive in those conditions. There's even a noose at the top, showing that at some point he has tried to kill himself but failed because something didn't let him to. Now, moving the cabinet, you'll find a power supply which you can disable by descrewing it and cutting the wires with a bolt cutter. Using a crowbar from earlier, you can then pry open the doors and it cuts to a black screen, which leads to a whole script of what Philip was thinking in his mind. Instead of being overwhelmed by questions, fears, or doubts, he was torn in two. A part of him now feels guilty for killing Red, even though he knew it was the only way to progress. He still felt that it was unnecessary. He should have just walked back and accepted his fate, that he wouldn't know what was going on in this place. But that's where his other part comes in, the part of curiosity, that wanted to see what had happened to this place, and why it had happened, and what had happened to his father. Is he still alive, or is he no more? The more he pressed on, the more questions he was filled with rather than answers. His interaction with Red only brought more questions than answers, and him giving the key was the only thing that stopped him from knowing what was going on deep inside. So now he knew that progressing further is the only way to go, and he was right. Entering, we find a note laying down, named Welcome to the Shelter, established in 1973 with 57 members residing in it. The next page shows important people and their statuses. The most notable ones were Wilbur Frisk, who is still alive, Neil Oswald, Chief Zeno, whose status is unconfirmed till the note we picked earlier confirming his death, Excavation Unit, which was abandoned because of the strange occurrences, and the most important one, Howard LaFresque, whose status is still alive. This gives us, and Philip, a sense of hope that we can finally get the reunion we wanted to see. The last update on this list was on 18th February 2000, which is the exact time frame when Philip got the letter from his father after years of disappearance. It ends with, "Please carry your documents," meaning that this was initiated not too long ago, and no one was allowed except for authorized personnel. Looking around though, it has seen better days, but it's still pretty modern for its time, having state-of-the-art protection and a heavy door at the start to protect it all. When entering through the door, at a distance we see someone standing. It gives us hope that there's some human that we can get in touch with, but as you progress, all lights go dark, your flashlight doesn't seem to work except for the glow stick, and after passing through a few meters ahead, as Phillips is being dragged into whatever the creature is taking him to, he sees flashbacks showing the summary of the entire sets of events that took place in Overture. At the same time, certain text on screen arrive, showing that he's addressing this to someone. We can assume that this is just us, but what if he's referring to someone else? Someone whom he's closer to. It's unclear for now, but we'll just have to keep this speculation. After that, you wake up in a prison-like room where the main door is locked, and you'll have to find a way out. You'll notice that someone is also alive in the next room till something comes to kill it. Showing that it's a sign of life still present, and your father being alive is also a possibility. There's a vent that you can access to exit, but unfortunately it's sealed shut, so you'll need some sort of equipment to unscrew the vent and make an exit. Looking around, you'll find a coin in one of those lockers, which you can use to open the vent, but unfortunately it's a bit too thick. Looking around the room, you'll find that there's a vise that you can use to place the coin and then tighten it, which makes the coin flatter and just at the right thickness to unscrew off the vent. Before you leave, you must collect some of your items, which is only your glow stick, but on the first drawer you'll find a note that says you must get out as soon as possible. You don't know who wrote the letter, but whoever wrote it does have a point. You must leave this place fast, which marks your exit through the vent and cuts to black, and shows the current date, May 2001. At this point, he doesn't even care what's going on around him. He just wants to make it out of there and never visit this place again. But little does he know, it's not going to be that easy. As you're walking through the vent, you find signs marked in blood, showing you where to navigate. Almost like someone has been here and has made this marking for you or someone else. As you pass through the grate, you can see that it's an operation room with an x-rays of a normal person, but on the table is something else. A humanoid creature of sort. You don't know what it is, but you can't really question it right now, so you try to leave, but this is going to be a recurring theme in this game, being teleported to different places that you've been to, and it's just a foreshadow of what kind of psychological treatment you'll be going through this entire game. After making your way through the exit of a broken vent, you'll find another letter. This one seems to be addressing someone else who was trying to escape. He talks about how much closer he was to the lab and that a person named Howard is working on the cure and that they're trying to head towards it. Howard, being your father, even talks about how after all this they will just sit together and enjoy sometimes, and signs off by saying that he is Neil Oswald, chief chemist. One of the names that have been mentioned in the Welcome to Bunker letter at the end of Overture. This guy is pretty much of a big name in the space. He also makes a note stating that the security system that he's designed in the mess hall is a bit complex and sensitive to organic material, as he's the one who designed it. Looking around, you'll find a few flares next to this vending machine and some batteries behind these boxes. This whole place is blocked with rocks, which is poorly done but still effective, because it prevents us from trying to escape these places. Now, the flat coin that you just made earlier to open the vent can be used in this vending machine to get a soda can. Keep this in your inventory because this will come in handy soon. Going into the other side of the broken vent, you'll find that there are two paths that you can take. Taking the path that leads straight leads you to a dead end with only a battery to collect, whereas you can take the path on the left, but the path is currently weak. Now don't step on it because you'll be trapped there, giving you an instant death. What I will suggest to do is take a few stones and try to throw them to destroy the floor. Then using these two sticks that are on the other side, make it as some form of a bridge so that way you can cross through. Or if you're some sort of a speedrunner, just take a rock and start bunny hopping on it and make your way through. This is a nice trick to learn and will come in handy in the later parts of the game, which I will explain soon. While you are doing all this, you will notice some random ramblings on the vents, mentioning like watch your steps, salvation, freezer, etc. It's like whoever was trying to get out of here was as deranged as the next person is in the place. Once you make it to some extent, you'll find a steam blocking the path, so you'll have to take a left into this freezer. You'll see someone pass through the door, but luckily it's locked so they can't get to you. But sadly, you couldn't see much of that person. There isn't much to collect in this room, but you'll have to go into the freezer and look at the entrance. There's a thermostat that shows a high temperature and it needs to be lowered. Using the soda can that you took earlier, you can manipulate the machine into reducing the temperature, thus giving you access to travel to the right side of the vent, which leads you to the mess. And right before the security lasers, you'll find a dead body. Inspecting the body will give his ID, named Neil Oswald. Safe to say that the guy unfortunately didn't make it. Next to him is a note, and taking it, it seems that he was tending to a patient named Darren Gray, who was part of the excavation team. He first reported symptoms of mild disorientation and was asked to lie down while he was administered sedative. But as the hour passed, it became worse and worse, with rash being developed on hour 3 and deja vu and paranoia being 2 of 3 full symptoms that showed up an hour later. He knew that the third symptom, that is oral distortion, will take place soon. So by hour 6 he had to secure himself as per archaic standards, but unfortunately by hour 7 he was pronounced dead because of an overdose of insulin which Neil Oswald himself administered. He didn't want to risk anyone, including himself, so he had to do it. Note that this person comes from the excavation team, which we know according to the previous game, the excavation team unfortunately had to abandon their work because of the presence of multiple artifacts, especially 66B and 63. So these were the symptoms that the excavation team could have gone through, and Darren Gray was one of them, fortunate enough to have been documented thanks to Neil Oswald. Now with that out of the way, we'll have to think of how to pass through these secure lasers, and the easiest way is to just take one of these boxes, put it over here and try to jump over. Sometimes you might fail and activate the lasers, which will cause the entire place to blow up, killing you instantly, but most of the time it shouldn't be that hard. Right ahead is a door which you unfortunately can't access cause it's locked, and the only person of trusted blood can enter, which means you have to take someone else's blood to put it in there. As expected, your character isn't authorized, but Neil Oswald is. So your next option is to find a way to extract blood from him. On the right is a completely barricaded door which you can remove all these rubbles and get access to the next area. Entering and exploring the first room, you'll find an alcohol bottle and your good old save point back. Interacting with it now gives a completely different interaction from Philip. Last time he was worried about interacting with it and even begged not to, but now he feels more inclined to. It's like a part of his routine, and a part of himself has also been taken into it whenever he interacts with it. Next to it are a few lockers where you'll find some supplies and a cassette tape, and looking towards your left you'll find a cassette reader. Placing the cassette at the cassette reader plays the audio.
My name, Elov Carpenter. Rank, elevated. Status, Code C, imprisoned. Observing the Turngat movement, I predict that it will be my cell they visit next. To my knowledge, I am the last remaining member of the Elevated at this facility, and so it falls upon me to ensure that Xeno protocol is not compromised. For that reason, I record here the only way I have discovered to neutralize the virus. The species primary weakness is
This member, Elov Carpenter, was never mentioned in any documents, but by looking at his situation, he seems to be someone of importance. Unfortunately, being trapped by Turngate, whom we discussed earlier, were the main entities of enemies in this series. It seems he knew too much of it, and the Turngate cannot risk keeping him alive, so they went through door to door and they found him before he could reveal the weakness of the Turngate. He was unfortunately killed. There's not much known about this character, but it does seem that he was there before us and knew exactly what was going on, almost like an alternate version of Phillips, knowing for what he is here and what he's about to leave with, but sadly couldn't make it. Walking a bit further, you'll find another door that is locked, but looking through it, it seems to be the same room that you were once trapped. One on the right was Elov Carpenter's. It seems that it wasn't too long before he was taken away, as the background screaming that you heard at the start that was probably his screen. Next to this door is another door that's locked but seems to have some form of blood trail going all the way to the other door, which also can't be accessed. On this corner you'll find a wall that's broken and a brick laying down the opposite side. There's a power button that you can't open with bare hands, so using one of the fallen bricks you can throw at it to break it open and cut off the power supply, which in return gives you access to the third door, which gives you some useful equipments like a syringe and painkiller. After collecting them, something is coming, and making a poor effort of hiding myself, you get to see who your enemy is. These are Turngate infected. They were once human but unfortunately got infected by the Turngate and have to turn into this humanoid looking creature. They are deadlier than the previous enemies that you encountered. They can run, they can spot you from a hiding place, and they also know how to use weapons. Unlike others where it's simply hiding and keeping out of reach is a good strategy, these people have a good amount of range. Even if they ever spot you with their flashlight, your best option is to run from them. Unlike the first game where you can somewhat defend yourself with a hammer or a pickaxe, here you are completely defenseless, making you even more vulnerable to enemies. But that compensates for how many types of enemies exist in this game, as there's only one. Escaping the monster and going back to the laser room, we now have to clean the ejection using the alcohol and extract the scientist's blood, which allows you to insert in this machine and access the next room. The loading screen talks about how he's slowly getting used to the security features of this place, as it's still way beyond its time, but shows how everything seems slowly pull him to further down the path. You enter the cafeteria, which seems pretty much in order as opposed to being left in a messy condition as the other rooms were. On the left we have some pretty nice lighting, which turns out to be fake once we go look at it. On one of the benches you'll find a CD, and it also gives you a note when you collect it. Welcome to the shelter. You can't read what's in it unless if you have the CD reader of some sort. On another table is a note that talks about how people are leaving the shelter because of the Turngate virus, and they were the ones responsible for releasing it. He suggests that those reading this letter should also do the same, but the one person who remains out there is Howard, your father, who apparently was the leader of such resistance and left the base a few weeks ago. He converted one of those kitchens into his offices while transferring some of the old texts, when he informed them that there was a way to counteract these diseases, but from there stopped contacting them. It's unclear what happened to him, but many presumed that he was dead, which gives a new perspective that not only the people outside were against it, but the people who were inside the facility were as well. Now to open the door, it needs to be an emergency situation, so to make that happen, head over to the room where you can find some supplies. Take the old barrel, put it underneath this conveniently placed missing generator area that emits a few sparks when you try to turn it on. This way, when you do that, it sparks up the oil barrel and lights up. Placing the barrel near the sprinkler at the top triggers the alarm system and opens the door. Entering it, we see the kitchen with some supplies on the cabinet, a strange artifact. Now these are spread across all of Black Plague and its expansion Requiem as well. They have a purpose and a secret which will be revealed after collecting them all. I will talk about this once we collect them all and discover what they were meant for, but now let's just call them collectibles. On the left side, we encounter the same room which the previous note mentioned was converted to Howard's office. It almost has all sorts of document findings present here. Still, the only thing is we can't get to access them because they're in foreign language. Next to our good old save point, we can interact with the projector, and it shows the list of events that happened before Philip decided to venture into the bunker himself. And it's quite interesting. The mine was discovered in 1910 to extract lead, but as time passed, the rate of suicide increased drastically. This was hinted in the first gameplay by the research documents sent by the University of Copenhagen back in 17th August 1930, and they suspect some chemical to be in play, and would continue to research the same. During the events of World War II from 1939 to 1945, a part of the mine was converted into a command bunker, which explains why the first layer of the mine had so many empty ammunition crates and storage units for military hardware. Within a day after World War II ended, the commanding officer sent a letter about his discovery of certain objects of interest while doing inspection rounds, which we termed as save point in Overture. After 7 years, the lead mine closed for unknown reasons, but later a new operation of both iron and lead were opened outside of the mine. But due to some unnatural fauna development, a doctor named J. Peters was sent to investigate when he discovered the grey rockworms. In Overture, the research office, which you could access by pushing the cart mine to the room, is where J. Peters spent most of his time researching these worms, and it's safe to say that looking after what happened in the next room, he didn't make it out. Soon after the accident, which the previous game labeled as the excavation incident, took place in resulting the shutdown of the operation with many bodies left undiscovered, which came to Archaic's attention a year later and decided to construct a research station within the old mine to further explore its militaries. 2 years later, the construction is complete and 3 members were made to lead the whole team, one of them being your father Howard. So it's safe to say that the company itself wasn't in the wrong for doing all this. They just wanted to know why it's happening, and your father was just one of the few to be selected for such tasks. They kept expanding the excavation site, which led to the water caves, or named Site B, where one of the key members, Troy Retanescu, was replaced by Neil Oswald, the same person whom we saw dead and tried to escape the facility at the start of the game. A year later, the infamous Substance 63 and Artifact 66B, also known as the save point, were discovered, but a month later Site B was abandoned due to a hostile fauna. 8 years later, they discovered the Turngate Tomb, which sounds like their resting place. It's at this point where some resistance was met, with Howard himself opposing the excavation of said area, but was put aside. Despite the note earlier mentioning that the vote was in favor of Howard's decision, a month later from there, a new chief overseer named Wilbur Frisk scheduled an investigation at the Turngate Tomb, and the records end there. It seems that all this was abandoned not even a year before Philip's visit, which makes it even more frightening. What did they discover that made them to abandon the shelter so quickly, and how dangerous was it? We'll only get to know the further we travel. Interacting with the save point now shows Philip finding more comfort in using them the more he does so. It seems like a part of himself is now dedicated to these save points. On the left we see a computer that we can access. We have 3 options: a CD drive, a research document, and a door lock controller. Trying to unlock the door now requires a password which you don't have access to, so the CD that you collected earlier must be placed in it, and accessing it gives a safety video to the shelter research station, which is your standard introduction, but the more it progresses, the darker it gets.
Welcome to Shelter Research Station, Greenland. Shelter is an almost entirely self-sufficient installation, built in the 70s to further serve the purposes of the archaic elevated caste in their pursuit and defense of ancient knowledge. As a new member of the facility, there are some basic rules you should be aware of in order to be useful to the archaic. Shelter provides living facilities, including a mess hall, gymnasium, and medical bay, in addition to the stipulated array of laboratories, chemical and biological, workstations, excavation equipment, and security. Please use the former at your leisure, but expect to be assigned to the latter with a moment's notice. Second, due to the nature of our work here, should you feel in any way ill, lightheaded, or otherwise mentally incapacitated, do not report to the medical facility. Fasten yourself securely to whatever solid object may be available, attempt to seal all connecting doors, and await retrieval by our trained professionals. In a worst-case scenario, be prepared to swallow your personal cyanide capsule, which will be issued after this briefing. The Archaic hates to lose its treasured staff, but it may be for the good of the operation. We know you will enjoy your work with us.
This means that the issue is far worse than one could have imagined. Having to tell your members not to visit the medical ward and instead isolate them sounds more like what happened during the pandemic era of ours, but worse, cause assuming the worst happens, they expect you to kill yourself. Though the voice sounds calm and composed, the message is dark and uncomfortable to hear. After that, we now can get access to the 2 documents. One is a transcribe of the video and the other are the password changes, where the password unlock the door can be found. But before that, when we open the research document, we see that it's from Howard himself. He initially warned Frisk not to proceed till his research is complete, but now that the damage is done, he can rely on the facility's security to prevent things from getting worse, which he states is so good that not even the head company, Archaic, is aware of its location. But with what Howard knows of this place, he sent a letter to someone he trusts, his own son Philip,
to seal shut this place and make sure no one else enters, and disturb whatever remains here. After his completed research, he formed a team of volunteers to come with him to the infected side of the shelter, where he would put to test his findings. If it's incorrect, he won't make it far, but if it's correct, he can make the greatest discovery of his lifetime. He also regrets leaving his family for such a task and often doubts whether he made the right choice or not. Even during his tense moment, he still thinks of his family and, more importantly, his son, to complete what he had started. Yet here you are, uncovering the secrets that your father knew yet kept hidden from the world. After collecting a torch from the dryer and some batteries, you can now go through the unlocked door and move a large box, which gives you access to the sewer. During the loading screen, he talks about how it's not his choice to be here, but since he's come this far, going back is all for nothing. In the sewer level, you'll find out that there's another puzzle which you'll need to arrange the box in a straight line so you can cross to the other area. But before you can even step foot to solve the puzzle, you now wake up in a dreamlike state, back at the ship where you once were at the start of the first game. You realize that you must get out of this, so looking around for a solution. This one is pretty simple. You just need to look at this image and make sure that the room closely aligns with the picture, which unlocks the next state. The same as the first one, but instead the room gets darker. Barrels filled with ash, and there's a map of eggs in front of you. The chest you moved earlier can now be opened to reveal another egg. Placing the egg on the map hatches it and tries to kill you, but it cuts to the next state, which spawns a dead wolf and the term sacrifice. So you'll have to place this wolf onto the pair of hands. Huge black hole spawns, sucking everything in. Next, you're in the dark room with the city-like overview underneath. Surrounding you are two pairs of hands which you'll need to activate in the particular order to unlock the next room, which is 2, 4, 3, 1. When you enter the room, you'll see a small area that has a noose and a book, and Red. It seems that the death of Red hasn't left your mind yet. It shows how disturbed you are by pulling the switch behind you now turns off all the lights, but the floor below you now has some weird circles. You'll have to place these barrels in a circle, but in which order, even I'm not sure, as it's random. In my first playthrough, the circles that activated it were random, and so were in this one. I would suggest moving the barrels around till one of them eventually works. In the next room, going up the stairs, you'll find an incinerator and a pair of hands sticking out, representing Red's cry for help, but he's the one who asked for it. Hopefully now he is at peace, knowing that he doesn't have to go through all of these again. Now pulling the switch activates the flooding system below you, and you'll have to swim through to activate another layer which will allow you to twist the valve to open the next door, which is the platforming section, where you must make it to the other room. After completing this section and entering the room, Philip realizes that this is the same room where the Grey Worm chased you earlier, so you'll have to jump through multiple hurdles and make your way out of there before the Grey Worm could catch up to you. After all that, you're finally out of the dream sequence and back to reality. But there's a voice that's stuck in your head.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? What am I doing here? Who am I? Why can't I hear their voices? Well, thanks for the help. I'm having an existential nightmare and you can't even say a word.
You don't know what it is, but neither does it know about itself. It stops talking eventually, allowing you to complete the puzzle and move on to the next area, which is in someone's room. Looking around and collecting supplies, your character makes a comment on when he looks at himself in the mirror. And when you make it into the main room, you see a computer, but you can't access it because there's no power to it. There's a fuse box, and opening it, there's only one fuse but 3 outlets. You can swap the fuse to different outlets to power different things at home. One of them powers the computer itself, which gives a ringing sound. Opening the computer, you see that you have an incoming call, and answering it, you finally hear someone for the second time.
Wow, you look like you've crawled through a sewer to get here. I suppose I'm flattered. Hi, I'm Amabel Swanson, and I suppose I'll be your guide for the day. Hello? Can you hear me? I think the transmission's only one way. I've got a webcam. Pull a silly face if you can hear me. Oh, very attractive. Okay, we're on. There's some things you need to know.
Sure. Whatever you say, lady.
We released a virus. It wiped us out. 3 weeks ago, we tried to get out through the mines, but it didn't work the way we'd planned. I think one of the Inuit workers made it, but others were taken. Some panicked and got lost. I ran, and when I stopped, I was on my own. Oh, and another symptom is déjà vu. The only chance we have is a man called Howard. He said he'd found a solution to the virus. His vitals last registered in the library, but only members of the organization have access. I'm still seeing a few life signs in the residential quarter. You need to find a survivor and get through into the library. Oh, and look out for our medical guy, Richard Eminis. He was acting strangely when I last saw him. What else don't you know? Let's see. Watch out for signs of infection.
Present and accounted for.
Did you say something? Look, the symptoms we know about are paranoia and oral distortion. Oh, and another symptom is déjà vu.
Enough already. My sides are splitting.
Well, I think that's everything you need to know. I'm sending over some research on the virus, and I'll get some doors open for you. Maybe now we can shoot the shit.
Well, now it's clear that you're infected, and even in the recent research text file, it talks about how a person feels in detail, experiencing out-of-body experiences, and in a fever dream which they never escape. And as far as they've documented, which begs them a question. If a person were to escape, how would it be? And that would be Philip, someone who has experienced this and overcame it. Now has a voice stuck in his head. Apart from being annoying, it really can't seem to do that much for now. This document also suggests keeping an eye on Dr. Richard Eminis, who seems to have experienced something similar and feels better than before, but the doctors suspect otherwise. Interacting with the save point next to the computer, Philip again mentions how comforting it feels for him to interact with it again, showing that he has already made it a part of his life to keep interacting with such items no matter what. Exiting the room, the entity takes over again and makes some snide comments about Philip.
If we must continue to share this brain space, I think I should have a name. Strange. So rare an opportunity to select one's own nomenclature, and yet I find myself at a loss. Any ideas, monkey? So much storage in this mind of yours. Did you realize you got an entire section in here devoted to film titles? 3,103 and a half films you've seen? You only got the first half of It's a Wonderful Life in here. Huh, how does it end? Now I'll never know. You know, Clarence, that's not a bad handle. I am something of a guardian angel.
For those who didn't get the reference, Clarence is a guardian angel from the movie It's a Wonderful Life, which depicts a suicidal man who did great things to his neighbors and local vendors. One night, when the man decided to end himself by jumping from a bridge, Clarence instead took the plunge into the river, forcing the man to save him. In return, Clarence showed what his town could have become without him, and made him rethink his choice, thus preventing him from doing so. And here, the entity thinks of himself as some form of a guardian angel for Philip, despite being annoying. After this, we are at the first layer of the game, and the objective is to unlock the door with a face and a hand scanner. Going through the armory, we can collect a few supplies and a saw, which triggers a turn gag to barge in, which we will need to escape from. There's a handful of rooms while accessing, which gives a good amount of resources. Like this room which has 10 lockers but only has one supply at the end of it, and a document detailing the history of archaic. The word archaic means outdated, sticking to old times routine when it's not of use in today's time. It started in 1519 by Francesco Melzi, who was a very close pupil of the well-known painter and polymathematician Leonardo da Vinci. It seems that the idea of archaic came into the mind of Vinci and was passed down to him among many other secrets and possessions on his deathbed. While he decided to make it a reality in secret, much of Vinci's works on engineering were considered impractical at the time, and it was only so because of the limiting technologies they had. This project remains in secret till now and has no official names for itself. The word archaic is just an insider term they use for identification's sake. It's similar to how game developers like to title their unreleased projects as Project 007 or Project Century or some code name to not reveal the actual name of the project to maintain secrecy. Archaic now in 2001 has over 30,000 members and is located at over 203 places, which for a company that remains in secret is an impressive count and surpasses that, and is a surprise that no one has ever caught up on what they were actually doing till now. Heading to the computer's central area and interacting with the drawer there, we hear a voice from the other room.
I remember why you're here. Dr. Swanson has filled me in. I recall every single syllable of our conversation. There was ever so slight an inflection in her tone that suggested she no longer trusted me. Why ever dinosaur extinction 65 million years ago would she think that? We share the same history. You and I are history. I recall the day of my birth, 18th of September, 1964, 3.46993412, recurring minutes past 9. I remember my mother looking surprised as I poked my head out into the world for the first time. You need a security registered palm. Something I can provide. You need it at the library. Something beyond my reach. When I became infected by those mindless zombies, I split off from the others and secured myself here. I cannot leave. Nonetheless, you will need a hand. I will not. Bring me a saw. I recall seeing one on my first day here, 3 years ago. Climate change of 10 degrees over the past 1 million years. Walk east and take the first door on your right.
There are others. He's like you, like us, yet he is not us. Why is he separate and yet we are bound together? Are we truly a we, or are we simply an I with two faces? But I am no monkey.
This is Richard Eminis, a doctor whom Swanson wonders about acting strangely. She was right. Remembering so many unnecessary details and rambling about them is its insanity, or it can also be a sign of hyperthymesia, where a person can remember extreme details of something as minute as a friendly conversation. At least he's sane enough to lock himself away to prevent others from getting injured. He asked for a saw so he could provide his hand for the scanner, while Clarence comments about him being like us but not like us. But after doing so, he cuts up something, but it's not his hand. It's some kind of tissue, while at the same time barges out of the door, semi-infected on the outside, completely on the inside. Your only way to get rid of him is by going into the server room, which can be opened and closed with a button to trap him inside. Clarence is surprised and congratulates you, despite few minutes ago tried to encourage the enemy to kill you.
My congratulations. Honestly, I mean it. Well done. I was only joking about the come get 'em thing. What say we celebrate with some nice, relaxing cyanide, huh? I'm sure I saw some anthrax lying around as well. Brother, come for us! He's over here! Embrace me, glorious void! Embrace me!
In the opposite room, there is a small server that houses 3 cards, which are all destroyed, and their replacements can be found at Eminis' office in the drawer, behind the cabinets and on the shelf. But you can't use them yet. You'll need to program them to get it working. To know how to program them, you will need to first collect the manual on the shelf between Eminis' room and the server room. This document shows what programs need to be installed in each circuit to make it work. To save some time, here's what you'll need to install on each card. And you can do that by inserting the card into the system and accessing the terminal. Once done for all 3, you can just insert them in the right color slots and it powers on the system, which gives you access to a door lock controller and folders. The international one is corrupted, but the current one isn't, which gives pictures of their ongoing projects, including one which we just so visited in Overture, the Water Cave. Opening its respective document, we see that the signatory or someone they agreed with was Elof Carpenter, the same person who left us a voice recording earlier on. This person, while we know not much, seemed to be an important individual in the elevated cast itself. Going further, we see that the project was just the usual for Archaic, and the chief attending chemist was Troy Retanescu, who Neil Oswald shortly replaced due to inexcusable conduct. This gives us a reason why in the earlier document he was replaced. Similar to the note we found in the water cave, it does acknowledge the finding of Substance 63, or as they have termed it, Persona TARDIS. The name, when looking up, doesn't really make a lot of sense, but at the same time does. Persona in Latin means one's alternates personality. TARDIS is Latin for slow or lazy. The substance, if we take it purely in name's perspective, can be portrayed a different effect on people when put to use, when in reality it can just be used for something else, something which we humans aren't capable of doing or comprehending. Just below that, the discovery of 60B, or as we know from the previous game, the save point, and its effects while interacting with it has been documented. While not explicitly mentioned here compared to the last game, we can tell that people experience delusions and hallucinations, just to name a few. The expenses doesn't look that bad on paper, but since this was done in the 1990s, it's still expensive when you adjust it to inflation. Discovering the completely new substance and artifact. The casualties did seem to exist, but in the Archaic's eyes, this was a normal procedure and nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing new in this report except for the last section, which talks about a saboteur, someone stealing equipment, but mostly radio equipment. Now the first theory is because of exhaustion they have been doing it, but it has been debunked because what use is radio equipment to a group of exhausted people who are just there to make some money. But the next one talks about Tom Redwood missing and a theory of him stealing the equipment being still open. In the first game, we see some radio equipment in Tom's room along with many books and other stuffs, to name a few. So Tom was the one to take all this so he could guide someone to help him end his life quicker. It ended with them closing the operation because of hostile local fauna levels which were deemed to be too risky to take over. This makes sense, as in the previous report in Overture, the substance they discovered did more harm than good to the people interacting with it in the mine. In another picture shows a tomb which we never saw before, and the following document talks about it being the Turnguide tomb, the resting place of Turnguide, which took the research team almost 25 years to find one, while at the same time Philip's father Howard was translating some ancient manuscripts to understand what they were dealing with. With his findings, he recommends the operation to be halted because it was home to the evil spirits, which we looked at the start of the video. Opening it will do nothing but harm to everyone in the vicinity. This was unfortunately overruled by another important person, Wilbur Frisk. Now it's best to keep this guy in mind because he will be a key member later on. It ends by saying the status of this operation is still open, and given that it's been an entire year since the last update, it's clear what sadly happened to them. There's one more document that is left, called Greenland Site, where Frisk details why they even went there in the first place. Similar to the timelines of events we got to see, but in more detail of this particular event. The high suicide rates and unusual events were the main reason, and they suspect Xeno activities going on as well. In total, there are 88 members going to this place, the same count which we got when we entered the shelter at the end of the first game. It even details how the construction went, taking 2 years to build it completely in secret, while averting potential threats and suspicions. Being able to operate with minimal crew to maintain secrecy, and plans to obtain more area of the mine being abandoned for, you guessed it, secrecy. It really feels like Archaic is the Pentagon of the game, maintaining privacy at its best. Its security is top-notch at its time, and it's also its highest priority, making sure that the shelter remains unknown to the world, like a myth. And in their findings, they mention various substances such as 53, 63, 70 to 73, and only 2 of them have a proper name, Persona TARDIS and Finis Specialis, with the counts being 27 and 10 respectively. Now the numbers did sound familiar to me, so I had to do some counting to see how many save points I collected, and it totaled to 24. There may be a few I could have left, or they could have been in some part of the maps which we couldn't access, so we can put the remaining 3 within margin of error. The other 10, known as Finis Specialis, are those special collectibles that you get in this game, and there's exactly 10 that needs to be collected in total as mentioned earlier. There's a special set of items that you can unlock if you collect all 10 of them, so stick with me till the end to see what it is. This Finis Specialis seems to be of lower value to the Archaic, but a great collectible value to the lower caste. and seeing that we ourselves are collecting them kinda makes us look cast in their eyes. Now to try to unlock the door, you will need its ID, which Philip noted on his to-do list. Entering it unlocks the door, which gives you access to the infirmary. Looking around and you'll find some supplies. You'll also hear this constant ringing coming from the computer, and answering it gives you the contact with Swanson.
Christ, you look worse than the last time I saw you. Though maybe you're just at a higher resolution. Oh, damn it. Note to self, never insult your last hope of survival. I just wanted to give you a word of advice. Those creepy artifacts, we don't know how they work. Or even what they do, I suppose. I saw someone get too close to one once. You probably don't want to know. I'm sure you'll be fine. Probably. I hope. By the way, if you happen to find yourself in my neck of the woods, I'm kind of trapped. It's no big deal, really. Just throwing it out there.
Oh no, that's hardly true. They're really completely harmless. Go on, it's just like wrapping yourself up in a warm blanket.
The patient report is corrupted, so no use trying to access that, but the chemical test is accessible, showing different chemicals and their effects when used. The most important one is the Viscae somnus, as it reduces the patient's heartbeat to a near dead-like state on the outside, but it's still at the safe level for a human to survive. The chemical can be found in the cabinet right opposite the computer along with some supplies. In one of the drawers, a note can be found talking about the cryostasis, which is a preservation for a living organism in an extremely cold state so that it's possible to revive the person without them ever aging. This process in the archaic is kept only for the highest of the high status individuals and certain low caste people who have vital or sensitive information of the archaic that have been affected by any form of illness or in critical condition. But as time passes, the shelter is becoming less and less of a 24-hour service area, so wristbands are provided to the above-mentioned people so they can access it anytime when their heart rate drops below a certain level, nearing death. All this sounds fine, but when you think of it, it's like real-world industries. Anything a corporation does is not to help the poor or the ones who actually need the product, but for the rich and investors to have a reason to stay invested in their company. Yet to seem like they do care about normal individuals, they include something that doesn't offer the complete experience you'd expect, but is enough to justify the price. And that's what the archaic does with their partial cryostasis scheme mentioned in their last page. Can you even partially cryostasis a person? Regardless, just to show that they are not as heartless as you think they are. Next to a computer, there's a TARDIS. When interacting, Phil notices that Clarence isn't in the picture whenever he does so. So there's more to it that we can uncover as the story progresses. Going through the main room, we can collect the wristband, and injecting yourself with the chemical, you can get access to the cryostasis room where there are some people who are already undergoing the process. But with the facility now abandoned, they might just be stuck here forever, never to see the light of day ever. In one of the chambers you can open, there is a frozen head, which is one of the two components needed to unlock the door. Handing over the storage room and passing through the lasers, you can see what Clarence can do.
Look here. It seems, yeah, the visual cortex of this monkey is certainly of a simplistic design. If I can just... There, you see? It's like molding clay. Hate to interrupt you while you're showing off your logical problem solving. Let me put it more simply. You see what I want you to see. Well, it won't work if you move around, will it? You can't look up the magician's sleeve.
This is just the start of his abilities, and the more you progress, the more he recognizes himself and his capabilities. After doing some more puzzle solving and going to the next room, we see a document written by Eminis, the guy who tried to attack us a few rooms back, as he documents the theoretical effects of this infestation. The confirmation part we know is that these viruses have the ability to take over human beings and manipulate its motor neuron functions, as what your father Howard pointed out. But there are theories that he also points out. The first theory is the virus ensuring the host stays alive no matter what, even ruling out suicide as against the option, something which Red told us at the end of Overture. The second theory is that the virus having the ability to gain control of all sensory facilities of the body, something which we witnessed firsthand just prior to this. Another fact shows the virus being able to adapt itself to any kind of body based on the brain function to suit its own purpose. While theory states that if the virus fails to take control of the host's mind, it forms a section of itself to make the host's secondary personality, something which we are going through, and as for the most part, you are Philip, but a small part of you is Clarence. Another fact is that the Turngate virus is released from the tomb they have uncovered, which was sealed for several centuries, as mentioned by Howard several times now. A theory is that the virus's personality will alter based on the host it has infected, since it has access to the host's memory, like a child whose behavior can be altered based on his or her parents' way of treating her. Here, Clarence knows how sensitive the topic of bringing up red is, and often abuses this during your most vulnerable moments. After some time, Clarence seemed to have a mental breakdown for some reason.
I'm not you. I'm part of something larger. We are nothing. We are a mistake. I need to rejoin them. Release me. Let me out. This is not right. I should be with them. I am them. There should be no I. Yet, this is not the first time. Another was infected. Red. He so wanted to, but we would not let him die. Did he call us a disease?
This line is important and will make sense later. After disabling the laser security and going through the gas-filled room to collect the gas mask, Clarence pulls up another trick his sleeve, further proving his childish-like behavior.
That is the most fun I've had in my entire life! Which isn't saying much.
With the gas mask on, you can now enter gas-filled rooms, where you can break open this gate, access another room with a dead scientist. But as you try to restore the power...
Let me guess. That was an important corpse.
Now this boss fight is okay at best. Your way of defeating it is by making it show up from this side of the wall and then turning on the generator to kill it, giving you the palm of the corpse that unlocks the door and is needed to unlock the main door as well. On the right there is a door with the terminal, your save point, and some supplies. The terminal allows you to manually override some of the equipment as well as unlock a few vaults to let the steam escape, clearing the room from poisonous gas. While leaving, you see a corpse to which Clarence gives a pretty mean response to it.
Ah, who's your poor monkey friend? Is he alright? He looks a little under the weather. If I were you, I'd envy him. If I were me, I'd envy him as well. How do you commit suicide when you got no heart to stop, no hands to wield the chainsaw?
Now if you plan on going to unlock the door, this is what you start to experience.
How peculiar. I could have sworn we remembered there being a door here before. How queer. What's in that direction? Oh, silly old me. I haven't got any hands to point with, have I? No, not that way. You sure you know where we're going? Didn't we pass the door just back there? You see? You silly Billy. It was here all along. Would you like Uncle Clarence to take the steering wheel for a while? You should see your face. This is actually gonna be fun. Perhaps I won't get you killed after all.
What Clarence said and what the document has theorized is true. Clarence can manipulate your vision, and his extent is much greater than what we anticipated. But what's more impressive is the game being able to do all these changes so seamlessly for its time. If anything, I was expecting some loading buffer for it to happen, but all happened so smoothly that it's nothing short but impressive. Now you can use both the palm and the head to get access to the next area, the library. And strangely enough, when you pick the scrambled note from a desk, Clarence seems to be very interested in it, even deciding to help you out on this puzzle. The puzzle itself is really simple, you just need to pull the books on the shelf to access the hidden compartment. But if you take too long, Clarence will first taunt you before revealing it himself about the puzzle. The secret compartment has...
Oh my god! He's dead! Quick, if he hasn't started to smell, give him the kiss of life.
What you thought at the start was right. Your father is no more, and as much as Philip hates him for abandoning him at a young age, he feels sorrow. The one thing that pushed him to come this far was not to know the secrets of this place, but to find his father, who seemed alive at the time. On the table is Howard's last words, which documents the Turngate in much detail, stating that they are an extremely intelligent being when together, but dumb as a worker bee when separated. After being exposed to studying and knowing about Turngate all his life, he knows that there's a way to suppress the infection long enough to contact the hive. The main central of Turngate is to achieve for some negotiation and to bring peace. But once Howard got in contact with it, the information it provided was way beyond one's capabilities. Even for an intelligent being like Howard, this was too much, and that's what prompted him to send the letters and mails to you before killing himself. So you can bring an end to this, but curiosity got the best of you, and you are now here, with your only source of hope now extinguished. In the same room you can collect some supplies and a switch that unlocks the main door to access the next level. And as much as you want to stay back and mourn for your father's death, you have to push on to see why your father was so obsessed with this and what was he trying to put an end. The next segment takes you to explore the tomb of Turngate itself, which seems to have been opened not too long ago. This isn't any temple or shrine or any sort, it's just overrun by construction materials. You'll need to go in all the way to the top to make progress. On the way, you'll find some materials, we'll have to do some basic puzzle solving and...
Holy hell! Good! Yeah, more monkeys for the incinerator. Shut up!
Yeah, that jump scare would have worked if it was 2003. Once at the top, you'll hear a call from the block room, so just get rid of these things and answer it to hear from Swanson.
You came! I guess I didn't really expect you to bother. My lab partner's such a pessimist. Was such a pessimist. It kind of rubbed off on me. He tried to make it through to me not too long ago. I guess he's a bit late for the party. You'll have to make a quick detour over the surface next, but be careful. If the cold doesn't kill you, well, let's just say I didn't pick the safest of locales for my last-ditch survival attempt. Okay, good news. Good news. Oh yeah, I think I've got a cure. Well, it's not really what you'd call a cure, but it should be enough to help you. I don't think I'm infected. I was careful, but I guess if you come rescue me and I'm looking at you like you're a roast chicken, I got it wrong. Sorry, that probably wasn't funny, was it? No, I suppose not. Well, I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, cures, rescues, saving the world, all so cliche, all so ridiculous. Do you really think you're doing the right thing? Your morality is just a lasting stain left behind by religion.
Well, there's a bit of hope. A cure that can at least prevent further spread of the infection. It's not much, but it's something to be grateful for. The next level is where you'll have to act fast, as the cold will slowly chip away your health as time passes.
The first room is nothing but a bait to believe that you'll be safe, except for these flammable things that you can collect. You'll still get frost damage no matter what. There is a drum of something flammable, but you can't light it without the lighter. And me, being the high IQ intellect I am, thought of another way to light it up. What you're actually supposed to do is not waste time in this room, but instead go to the right side where there's another room that has a lighter to light the fluid along with some painkiller. Now with the lighter you can set up some hotspots for you to rest and recover your health, but while you were running something collapsed behind you. The surprising part is, even Clarence isn't sure what happened, which is odd considering that he's the one playing tricks on us and using our senses. But to see him as confused as us is something new. To navigate back, you need to do some parkour, and to make it out of there, take the flammable spray from the decoy room to combine both and spray it on the frozen level to get access to the other side of the map, which has an entrance sealed off by snow. You need to light up the explosive barrels by fitting them with the fuse from another nearby room and setting it off, giving it access to the final area at the research facility, where Annabelle Swanson is.
You know, you turning up here is probably the second best thing to happen to me since I've been down here. I'm reserving first place for when we get out. So, I'm not big-headed enough to think you came all the way here just to rescue me. I wasn't lying though, I think I've worked out how to disinfect you. But, you probably saw this coming. It's not quite as simple as all that. I had to engage the failsafe on the research rooms to seal myself in here, and that means we need a key card to get me out. One of the personnel, one of the infected ones, tried to get in with a card, but I don't know where it went. Look, I need you, and, well, if you do get me out, I'll give you the biggest hug of your life.
Christ! Go here, go there, fetch this, run me a path. Typical broad, atypical circumstances. You think fate has anything to do with this? Fate is merely the war cry of those too scared to think for themselves.
With one final task, you head your way to the kennel because that's where the key pass is. But as you're exploring, you find out that there's something much worse than the dogs that you encountered from the previous game. And as you're about to start exploring,
dark, isn't it? Echo! 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 Kinda empty. Now this is what it's like to be me, buried deep within the cavernous expanse you call a mind. You see, this is what puts me in such a bad mood. We spend all this time messing about with door codes, levers, human appendages, and it turns out at the blink of an eye, I can just block it all out. Whoosh! Gone. Just you and me on some kind of messed up holiday. You think I can conjure up some margaritas? No? Shall we get the hell out of here, then? Well, it's hardly better, but it is more interesting. Just.
it's like Clarence wants us to sympathize with him for not knowing what's going on in the outside world, while at the same time showing his capabilities of how he can control our vision to see what he wants us to see and to avoid it, which he already has proven before, but this time he shows its true extent. Heading towards the right end, you'll be able to turn off the lights, which activates the lights on the other side of the room, but as he tries to make a getaway, a feral beast mysteriously attacks you. It's unclear what this beast is or how it looks like because we can't really see it, but there's been a lot of theories on what this beast is. But the most that stands out to everyone, including myself, is that the beast could be Wilbur Frisk. Because if we go back a little forward to this room, we'll find a note written by Elof Carpenter, who seems to have been observing Wilbur Frisk, and some of the key details here sticks out. June 13th, 2000, Frisk starts locking himself away in the kennels with the remaining dogs for protection.
followed up by September, where he seems to be enjoying the company of those feral creatures despite all of them being infected. On October, he started becoming sensitive to lights, which we notice here. During the light, the creature doesn't attack us, but once it's dark, it comes out and starts attacking us. He also started displaying animalistic tendencies, which is exactly what we see here. The animal-like sound, and mentions that some of the dogs are dead, which we can prove by looking at all the bloods and scratches on the floor. I think if it purely lore-wise, it does seem that Wilbur Frisk stands out as the obvious person. Your only way to pass through this first section is by taking the crates from the hidden room and blocking off these holes, from where the monster comes from. There is a small section that you can divert to, which shows the damage this creature can do, with all the dogs lying dead and a huge claw mark on them. And as you're about to leave, well, that's Clarence as usual. After that, you make it to the other room where you get this cheaply done jump scare and a series of lights going on and off. So based on the previous section, you'll have to follow the lights, which gives you access to the key, and you'll have to return the same way you came from. Now you can access the research facility and explore the room to get access to some supplies and your usual save point, which doesn't really give a lot of dialogues, but entering the other room, the door behind you slams shut and a Turnguide infected starts chasing you. With no other way of getting out, your only option is to kill it. You can do that by lifting up this metal box and then launching it at the exact moment the Turnguide infected comes right under it. But as you do it...
Hey, good work, buddy. Give yourself a slap on the back with a crowbar, why don't you? Oh, one thing, before you get too overwhelmed with glee. I know murder can be a lot of fun, but didn't you quite like that broad? Hey, I think that's a piece of her skull in your shoe. Wait, don't tell me you really thought... I thought you knew I was pulling your leg. Oh, my best laid plans and all that. This is just terrible. You silly Billy. Come on, monkey. Take a joke.
This joke is too far taken by Clarence, to a point where interacting with Swanson gives no comments from Phillips. But despite all this, Clarence doesn't seem to care much about it.
Why, oh why, are they always holding a key, or a note, or a swipe card? Why is it never, I don't know, a cheese sandwich? I'm starving.
With your last hope now gone, you explore Swanson's room to see what she has in store. There's a lot of text files to go through, but the most important one is the antidote, which according to Swanson isn't a proper cure, but should be enough to stabilize the infection or completely remove it. But there is a downside, a rare case where both the host and the infection will be destroyed. It also gives a list of equipments and chemicals that you'll need, which will be useful later. There are also two graphs that show the decline of human population and the increase of annual mutation, and both seem to align exactly at the same range. You can also use the door controller to unlock the door to the room, which we'll start exploring soon. There's also a diagnostic program which shows the status of the shelter we are at. Generally, it's not looking very good. With all the experiment status being known in the visitor's log, the last person to leave was 8 days ago, which means the bunker was still operation and only abandoned for a week, which makes it practically quite new of a structure. And the last visitor to arrive this year was only one, which is you. The major events, what we saw was the same as earlier, but here it refers to something called Accident 18C, which is documented in one of the news reports in the first game, where this accident was a result of 45 workers perishing due to the infrastructure weakness, and none of their bodies discovered since. The rest goes as usual, but however, most of the logs are corrupted for unknown reasons. With the cure now in mind, all that needs to be done is locate one machine, and all the chemicals need to get rid of the disease that he has, or just prevent it from causing more damage than before. Now heading your way into the chemical research lab, you'll notice that it's filled with gas, so to clear it you'll need to break open this valve and place the connection between these two to regulate it. Now with the gas cleared, you can access the door which is previously locked. This is where you get to see the other side of Clarence.
suddenly going from mocking you to now giving you advice and guiding you through the process, while also begging you not to go ahead with the cure. While in this room, you'll need to collect these crystals and place it in the jar to activate the emergency protocol to make a getaway from this room. This collapses the entire room behind you, making it inaccessible. Once you leave it, with the main ingredients in your hand, your final destination is the examinations area. But
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you've got a way to destroy me. Wanna know what I'm thinking? I'm taking you with me.
with the paranoia Clarence is affecting you while dodging through Turngate infected, you reach what Clarence calls.
So, here we are, end of the line. No gold watch, no thanks for the laughs, Clarence. Nothing. Just a potion and a big fat screw you. Good times.
Here, along with the substance you collected, you now need to collect 5 more chemicals all present in this area. And in the next one, where you can get access by removing the painting and climbing through it. With that, you can enter the final room where the machine that is responsible for putting all chemicals together is present, along with the Turngate infected body, which has been mutilated by multiple pipes inserted into it. It could have been done for research purpose, but God knows what else they were planning to do with it before it all went south. To create a solution, you'll need to add it in. After that, everything seems normal, but as you try to leave,
Philip, let me live. You'll never do it. You don't have the balls. Go on, I dare you. You're some coward, four-limbed freak. You barely evolved out of the swamp. You haven't got it in you. You see, I knew you wouldn't do it. That puts me in the steering wheel now. Ha-ho, Silver! What a pretty body! Mine! Mine! Mine!
Clarence, now having his own body, decides to kill you, and you need to make a getaway. His movements and attacks are similar to a normal Turngate infected, but whenever he does attack or comes close to you, you can hear his grunts and muttering as opposed to the regular ones. And he has a different shade of color just so we can know who Clarence is. After we leave the room, all the Turngate infected seem to consider him as a traitor, a failure as a matter of fact, and kills him. Even apologizes for his action, but why so? Isn't Clarence just one of them? What did he do wrong? Well, for start, let's look closely at how a Turngate infected is even made, starting with the normal person interacting with the strange object or being too close to its origins. Then it makes a person go through a series of fever-like dream where a person normally would fail, thus resulting in the Turngate winning and taking over the body. In other words, the body isn't theirs, but something that they fought for to get it. Clarence, on the other hand, is different, as Philip did manage to escape the fever dream, giving Clarence no choice but to stay in his mind till either Philip dies or manages to find a cure for it, which he does by giving Clarence his own body, something which he didn't fight for but just got it cause of luck. This, along with what the Turngate said.
At the end, this one was more human than he would have believed.
This implies that he thought more like a human. Because of the failed attempt at taking over, he got access to the knowledge of a human, and like how a child adapts his mindset based on his or her parents, Clarence adapted his mindset based on Philip, making him act like one either by creating jokes, albeit horrible ones, caring, and even being driven by vengeance for trying to kill them, which he showed in the final showdown. All these traits are that of a human and not that of a hive mind, which is a collective space of infected that follow the same code no matter what. Clarence being in that hive is nothing but disruptive, so the best thing they can do is get rid of Clarence, but not his body. Similar to exorcism, where you get rid of the devil in the body but keep the body intact so its original soul can reclaim it. Here it should be another member of the hive who will take place of Clarence, after which the Turngate takes you to their domain.
Do not be alarmed. Space is in your mind, mankind. If you know yourself, you have nothing to fear. I, on the other hand, stand to lose everything.
One came before mankind. Howard. He was not strong. Mankind as a whole is stronger even than I.
But I know mankind is weak.
Nonetheless, I do not underestimate you, mankind. I submit to you. However, I must, against my own desire, tempt your anger further. Mankind is not united as I am. Such a seething mass of individuals. Little wonder you all pull in different directions. All of me pulls in one direction. And for that reason alone have I bested those that disturbed me. I would test your reactions, mankind. I would test which direction you pull. And then you shall have your answers. And, if need be, your revenge.
You'll have to pass through their tests to know who they are and why they're doing this. The first test involves you to move a brick and hand the other person the tool you found in your cell. In return, he will free you, which the Turngate informs.
Working together is the only way. I act as one, though I am many. Thank you, mankind.
The second test involves you to ring a bell at the end of the map, which will force a roaming infected to break open the door, allowing you to escape, which the Turngate informs.
Death is a necessary part of life, but not all deaths are necessary. Thank you, mankind.
The third and final test involves you to move some blocks on different levels. This test proves that you're willing to sacrifice yourself for the betterment of others. This passes your test, and in return the Turngate reveals everything about themselves.
I came here to this place many millions of years ago, before mankind was even upright. As eons came and went, mankind appeared around me, and found names for me. Demon, Spirit, Turngate. We existed in harmony for much time. I, lying dormant within what you refer to as the infected, and they benefiting from my knowledge and protection. But mankind changed, and I fled. So much power in mankind, so many questions, and yet without the intelligence to answer them. Mankind grows and tries to form a whole, a community. Somehow, it becomes more dangerous, more angry, and with no direction for this anger, besides itself and its world. And then I was discovered. Mankind created this place to find me and silence me. They tore open my resting place and set about destroying me, and I, with no form of defense, was forced to attack. I am not the barbarian. I am not the invader. You are. But you, mankind, you are different. You have proved this, and now I ask for your mercy. Do not allow me to be destroyed by your kin, which they would surely do. They followed the Inuit here, You follow them. There will be more. Will you send word? Will you destroy all trace of this place, so that no mankind will ever discover me again? Will you do this for me?
This is what Howard was trying to tell us ever since the start of Overture, to destroy the entrance of this mine so no one can disturb the turn guide ever again. And you also try to do the same, but Phillips has other thought in mind. Unlike his father Howard, he isn't ready to do something of face value because of all the loss that he has gone through the game. He feels that there are better options. Trying to leave the place just isn't possible and completely removes it from our idea, while interacting with any other items does the same thing, leaving you with just the computer to interact with. This time you make the decision to kill them all, essentially betraying the turn guide's hope and keeping them safe. The reason why he did this is because he was tired of being told the things the turn guide thought that they can tell him things to do like a monkey, but he isn't one, and just that he thought he would be, and this brings an end of Black Plague and into its DLC.
This DLC largely steps away from the original Penumbra lore and focuses mainly on the puzzles. Instead of a complete walkthrough like an explanation I did for the previous two games, I'll be highlighting the most interesting dialogues and interactions that I've encountered. We pick up right after Black Plague, finding ourselves in a limbo-like state where our mind navigates through various game levels. Throughout the journeys, we uncover cryptic red books revealing of Elof Carpenter that he was the last visitor before us. While I won't be detailing too much on the solutions, I will be referring to the YouTuber EzioWolfy, who actually managed to complete the entire Requiem, so I will be using a part of his gameplay clips during this footage. While delving into the particular audio logs, one revealed familiar events from Black Plague and Carpenter's surprising sanity as he documents his experience, even predicting Dr. Swanson's fate. We also discovered the Turngate hive mind, where personalities shift from Red being replaced by Eminence and so on. This is all done to halt Phillips's progress from trying to even escape from the hive mind itself. As we progress through the levels, solving puzzles and collecting orbs, we are contacted by Dr. Eminence, who seems to be in the central conscious of this entity. We learned about the elevated castes, including Elof Carpenter, who earned a status through his stubbornness. In the sewers, Eminence, or someone trying to resemble him, continues to communicate, acknowledging our relentless pursuit of answers. We find more of Elof Carpenter's books, painting a picture of his declining state that the archaic's ruthless nature, mirroring real-world corporate greed. The hive mind becomes interestingly and increasingly aware of our presence, even directly addressing us through a glitching radio. We encounter a resurrected Red now, who replaces with Eminence. More of Elof books hints at the connection between us and him, raising unsettling questions. Eventually, when we launch a blue spear to destroy the key structures and collapse the area, we find more of Elof's increasingly deranged writing, and Red reappears, expressing disappointment in our choices. During the final level, the hive mind acknowledges our departure, knowing that it can't stop us anymore, so it leads us to a silent and contemplative final section. Here, once we reach the incinerator again, we are offered two choices: enter into the incinerator and end it all, or just leave and get a sort of false but true kind of like ending. But however, regardless of which you take, both aren't actually as good as they sound. Thus, it brings a bittersweet conclusion to the entire Penumbra series.